Good morning. Thank you for attending this month's DBE Stakeholder Advisory Committee meeting. Everyone should have received a copy of the agenda as well as the meeting minutes. Please let us know if there are any, if there's any information that's not accurate in the meeting minutes, and Christina will make those edits. So if you have any comments related to that, please get those to Christina so that we can enter them into the record accurately. We have on the agenda today Scott Lowry, who is the Deputy Division Administrator for the Division of Transportation System Development. We also refer to as DTSD, will be joining us late. And if we have some time at the end of the meeting, he'll give some updates regarding WisDOT. I specifically asked him to give updates related to the bipartisan infrastructure law bill and just to provide everyone with a status update. Madalena is unable to join us today, so Maria Rojas will give the DBE utilization update report, and I will provide the labor one. We will break into our subcommittees, and we'll do that around 10:30, and then we'll come back together as a full group. I did want to share with you that we, as a committee, we've made a lot of progress over the last 14 months. We spent a lot of time as a group and in our subcommittees identifying risk and issues on both the DBE business side and on the labor side. We've had some internal discussions within WisDOT. We feel that we've made a lot of progress in this area. And we've also, in those subcommittee groups, have started to identify some areas that we would want to focus in on to make some improvements on the business side and the labor side. So we feel that we're at the point where we would like to see the committee start working on putting some work plans together to identify some focus areas, and in those focus areas, hone in on some goals that we can start identifying strategies to work on for the remainder of the year. And so in sharing all of that with you, we would like to propose that we move our meetings to every other month so that we have an opportunity during the off months to start implementing some of those goals and then reporting back as a larger group, and then having more deep dive discussions in our subcommittees on what progress we're making on achieving those goals, what types of challenges we are encountering, so that we can kind of come back and maybe retool ourselves and take a look at, or do we need to approach things differently? So we feel like we want to be able to do that on the off months. What we will do, if everyone doesn't have a problem with us meeting every other month, is we will meet again in April, and then we'll skip May and then start our new schedule in June. And we're doing this just to kind of look at some things internally within WisDOT, because we have a lot of other stakeholder groups that we also manage within the Office of Business Opportunity and Equity Compliance. So we want to kind of put the DBE Stakeholder Advisory Group on some of the opposite months that we're having some of those stakeholder meetings that some of you are involved with, so that we don't have so much, having to pull you into so many meetings in a given month. So I just wanted to get some feedback from you to ask you how you all are feeling with us. Do you think we're at the point where we can transition to moving to every other month and then working, kind of on trying to implement some things on those off months? What are your thoughts? And you're welcome to unmute yourself or type in the chat, and I'll take a look at what's in the chat here. Is anyone opposed to making that change?
No, I'm not, Leah.
Okay, boy, okay. I heard that loud and clear. Great. All right, well, then that's good. We'll go ahead and do that. So then what Christina will do is, again, we'll meet next month, but then you'll get a calendar invite with the changes in the meetings. And so, just make note of that. And then we'll get everybody on that schedule with those changes. So the other thing that I also wanted to share with you is that the Southeast region has been giving project update reports. And so we're also going to move those to quarterly. We'll put together a quarterly schedule to bring the Southeast region staff in to talk about the various projects that are happening in the Southeast region. What are those opportunities on both the business and labor side, and then talk about the progress we're making in achieving increasing DBE participation and diversified labor participation on those projects as well. All right. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Maria, so Maria can give an update on our the utilization related to DBE participation.
Good morning, Leah. I just want to, I do just want to add, and obviously yeah. I'm not opposed to cutting down on meetings also. That's running a business and obviously attending all the meetings. One less meeting is definitely appreciated. But with that being said, obviously we know as far as with construction infrastructure in particular, the amount of projects are rising. Obviously the amount of concern for our members, our constituency, to ensure that their participation is there. So with that being said, reducing the meetings, but obviously in today's day and age, 2022, let's make sure that we're still focusing on the results, focusing on the communication. Obviously we can use various forms of communication to make sure that we're keeping updated on the results and the progress. Obviously we talk about is looking at not just the DB participation, but overall looking at a lot of the information that's out there that we're to ensure that we're receiving that. So so again, I'm not opposed to lessening up on the meetings, but let's ensure that we're focusing on the results and keeping the communication of that progress obviously is important. Just
very good. Yeah, no, those are very good points, Hugo. I once I was thinking about, as you said that, what we can do is the leads for the business side and the labor side. What we can do is make sure that we're communicating maybe outside of those meetings and sending emails to one another, to the subcommittees, about how we're working on, or the progress we're making on those goals that we are going to focus on. So we could do that. We started doing a little bit of that on the labor side. And so let's increase that frequency since we're going to be meeting less. That might be one way to approach it. So then that way we're not spending so much time to catch up. But if we're trying to find ways to do that ongoing communication. So on the business side, it can be Madalena, Bruce, and Ruben working together to report back to the subcommittees when we're not meeting. And then on the labor side, it would be Joshua Johnson and I doing that, and Michael Stalvey. How does that sound, Ugo? Does that sound like an approach that maybe that we could try and see if that will help with
yes, of course, definitely. I mean, that's, yeah, I think there's obviously, we know there's lots of ways of communicating. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and just making sure we're staying, yes, I definitely agree. I think that's a good start.
Okay, great. Let me take a look and see if there's anything in the chat here that, okay, great. And it looks like Andrea Brain also agrees that, especially since we're moving into construction season for sure. Yeah, folks will be very busy over the next several months. All right, Maria, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And I'm assuming you're going to share your screen. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Good morning, everybody, again. Like Alia said, I am Maria Rojas. I am the utilization engineer, and I am going to share with you. Okay, let me know when you can see the screen, please.
Yep.
I can see it.
Okay, thank you. So this is the attainment report that reflects the utilization, the DBE utilization. As you may know, the Department and Federal Highway Administration set an average goal of 20.41%, with conscious of 8.14 and neutral of 4.27. Also, the department has an estimate of construction federal fund for the federal fiscal year 22 of 800.34 million and 100.3 million estimate of consultant federal funds. With that in mind, I am going to show you March numbers just as reference, because the department still is processing March bid letting. So On March, we have 36 contract with the average assigned DBE goal of 8.25% and the average DBE goal achieved of 9.98%. That is exceeding 1.73, which is really good. But also we have some GFE requests. On March was 7, and all of them were approved. So far, we have 1 proposal reject and 1 that was not responsive. And now let me clear March just to give you an accurate numbers of what we have. Because February, it has been pretty much processed already. So here we are. This is February. And February, we have an 400.4 million used out of the 838 that was estimated on construction. And we have 58.6 million out of the 131 million estimate for consultant. With that mean for us is we have in total year to February now 499 millions in total of the use funds. With that, we have for consultant 14.5 million out of the 16.2 required for consultant service and 52.9 million required out of the 103.5 million required for construction. So our total the 1920.8 million for the total commitment, which is that represents pretty much almost the 60%, which is really good. And overall, so we have this 13.52% is out of the 12.41 that I mentioned at the beginning, that was said. So we are doing really good. And talking about the conscious or neutral, we have 10.32 out of the 8.14 that we were planning, and 5.02 out of the 4.27. I just want to mention that on this one, on the conscious, everything have been taken here. The amount that is taken here, the values are only for construction, because before we didn't have goals set for consultant service, but now we are going to have. So up to February, this 10 point is only construction, but this 5.02 include the consultant service because they were considering voluntary or neutral. So any question about also let me mention it that this 7 million.4 is just the voluntary. All these have been after project execution, contract execution. So these are all the additions and reductions that we have during the year. So that's what I got for you. You have any additional question or anything that you want to add, Leah?
I think Bruce Bond has a question. He put one in the chat.
Yeah, so there, I'm not sure if you can see that, Maria. So I don't have any comments here. Bruce Spahn has a question of the race conscious, how much is professional services? And then are there any, he says there are no April, there are no race conscious goals set.
Yeah,
and you're referring to the consultant side, correct?
The consultant side, yes. There have been again, so far this fiscal year, I think with one exception, there are no goals on the NOIs for professional services design. So again, if I don't try to win as a prime, I just have to wait for the next solicitations.
Oh, so I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Of the race conscious goal that's being met, how much of that is for professional services? Because again, I'm questioning the April NOIs for design services are out now, and all of them have no DBE goals.
Are you
Yeah.
talking about this? Are you talking about design build, Bruce?
No,
Yeah,
I'm talking.
but professional, yeah, I got it.
Okay.
You are asking about if we, from this 10.32%, how much is for professional service, right?
Of what's been achieved so far.
Yeah, you got me with that information. I don't have that, but I can try to get that information for you because I have to go back to every single bid letting and check. Like I say, all this is construction, and normally we have in construction professional service for survey and for lab test. That's
I'm not speaking of construction. I'm speaking of design, professional services for design.
okay. No, we don't have all the percentage. We have like a 2.49 percentage of consultant, but this we count all that percentage to neutral because we haven't yet created set goals for the consultant. But let me see for consultant if that will help. Let me try to do here really quick math.
While you're looking at that, Scott Lowry just joined us. His hand is raised. Scott, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, Leah and Maria, maybe I'll circle with Michael Helker and Brenda Shanefield, Bruce,
Okay.
to find out where we're at from the consultant side because their teams are the ones that post those. I thought there were some bigger projects in April, and I'm looking at the list too, and I don't see anything on it. So let me check with them as far as where we're at with that, if they can help answer your question.
Okay. Yes. Just like I say, it's just over the years for design services. They've generally been, well, essentially zero goals for
Yes.
DB participation, and only on the very large projects. The I-43 project had DBE goals on it, but all of the April solicitations, there are no goals. Last month were no goals, and the month before, and so on. So I know what's been happening historically, as Madeleine had mentioned, that professional services has been achieving participation through race neutral more than race conscious. And because it's been successful in race neutral, that's the goal of the federal program, is to have it be awarded without requesting you provide DBE opportunities. But for us that don't get those race neutral opportunities, we don't get any opportunities.
And Scott, I just want to let you know that Maria has been working with Brenda on identifying some potential opportunities on the consultant side and specifically looking at the Southeast region. So we'll just need to look at what, where we're at with that and have circle back with both Brenda and Madalena.
Yeah, I've heard that too, which certainly potentially has good news for us. So look forward to hearing about more of that.
Yeah, Bruce, you always have the opportunity to answer or submit your qualifications for any of our design projects, right? So
Sure, yes.
not saying you don't have the opportunity. There's
Right.
always the opportunity. Yeah, absolutely. And you got my commitment. We are looking to make sure that we spread the work out amongst the industry to ensure that folks like yourself and others, continue to have those certainly those opportunities to
Yes.
either prime or, yeah, you bet, Bruce.
Okay.
Yeah, I just
Don't-
want,
Hang on, Dave Bros has his hand raised.
Yeah, Bruce, I was just gonna add, Brenda has those numbers put together and she typically provides them at our Transcac meetings. I was just digging for the last report, and if I can find that, I can share that, the actual breakdown of conscious versus neutral, Bruce, on the consulting side.
All right, great, thanks.
Go ahead, Maria. Did you have something else you wanted to add?
no, I was, he took my words. I was ready to say the same about Brenda, that she has a report, and that report, I have already that report as well, so I can send it to you, and we can invite Brenda if you would like to one of our meetings, and she can go better through all this topic than I do. For
Yeah,
sure.
that sounds good, Maria. We can do that as well. Yep. Mhm. All
Okay,
right.
any other question or comment for this presentation?
Yes, I do have a question. Is there a reason why March is not in there? I see February, April, but I don't see March.
Yeah, I was at the beginning of my presentation. I said that I will delete March only because it is still under the department is still processing the bid letting. So I shared at the beginning of my presentation March data just as a reference, because so far we have only one rejected proposal, and this one that we have as a withdrawal here, it was just not responsive. But that's why I didn't use that for the overall report, because it still is under process. So it's not, I take out just to give you a more accurate numbers.
Okay, thank you, Maria. I didn't catch that. Thank you.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you for asking. Any other comment or questions?
How
Okay.
often will we get this report? We go to the every other month discussion.
Yeah, we can include that when we meet.
Can we
Each time.
continue to get it monthly with or without the meeting?
I think we can put a summary of some information together along with the labor utilization report. Yes, we can provide that.
Because we've been going by this report for a decade, and I don't want to see it just become
Sure.
hopelessly out of date when we get to see it on this bottom.
Yeah, I
right.
think we can put it in a format that, I think we can put it in a format similar to what we would share like with the Transact and Transcac meetings. So that it's a little bit more understandable and more in plain language. So yes, we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also do want to slow up the meeting, but my concern I put in the chat also was visibility of the report, obviously, and then obviously having opportunity to correct. If we see things that not meeting every month, if we're meeting every other month, just the opportunity to respond, to correct concerns that we may see. That's where to me is where part of the concern comes. So I just hope we still, again, focusing on the progress and the results, but that is a concern.
Yeah, and I think as we move along, Google, if we experience that, we may need to make a change in the frequency and when we meet, we can always revisit that. I think that, what I've recommended, which everyone seems to support, to going to every other month, if that's not working, we can always come back and revisit it. But what we'll do in the meantime is, it sounds like from what I'm hearing, it's important for committee members to continue to know how we're doing on a monthly basis, so we can pull those reports together and share that with everyone, and continue that communication at the subcommittee level, working with the leads on and submitting questions and getting the leads to get back to you with the responses. And between the months of when we're not meeting, we can again make sure we have that continued communication going on. All right.
Okay,
What I'm
thank
gonna-
you.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. What I will do next, if there is not any other, I'm not seeing any other comments in the chat or any hands that are raised. Scott did join us, so what I'm going to do is go back on the agenda and ask Scott if he can give us some updates. And Scotty did share if maybe you can talk about where we're at with Bill and any other updates you'd like to share.
Sure. I guess what I understand where we're at from the bill is, I think we expect, or obviously the president signed the appropriations, and I think we expect our numbers from federal highways as far as what actual numbers are by the end of the month. And then we expect to submit our Fed spending plan to the committee up at the Capitol that first week of April, I believe. And then, once we get that Fed spending plan approved with them, then we'll be moving forward. We have some solicitations from the consultant side or from the locals as far as projects that they would like to have as part of that within this federal fiscal year. I think they're still receiving applications. Last I heard, I think they were at 49. If they should not be able to get to the amount that we originally planned on, I think we tried to split it almost 50-50 with them. That we do have state projects to backfill some of that this first year if they didn't have projects that were ready for construction yet this year because of the quick turnaround. So we do have a plan. I think once that federal planning is approved and we start to pull projects into lettings, we'll have a discussion with industry across the board as far as where we're going to be putting these projects, what projects they're going to be, so people stay informed. So that's really what I have, Leah. If anybody has any questions, I can certainly help answer them. But
Thank you, Scott. Any questions for Scott? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Scott.
yeah, thanks, Leah.
All right, and then the last thing that I will do briefly, and again, we are incorporating this information into the meeting minutes, is to give you an update on our labor utilization for the Southeast region projects that we are tracking. So let me share my screen here. All right, this report runs through the end of February, so February 28th. And looking at the Zoo Interchange project, gotta correct the dates here. Total number of employees on that project, 746. Total number of minorities, 208, which comes out to be 28% of the workforce. One thing that the labor advisory group asked us to do is add the number of trans graduates that are on those projects. So we did do that. And there are 3 trans graduates that are working on that project. For the project, the State Highway 50 project in Kenosha, total number of employees, 741. The total number of minorities, 308. 41% of the workforce. I will not get into the racial and ethnic background. We'll make sure that that's incorporated into the report, but you can see that on the screen. And the total number of trans graduates that are on that project are 2. And for State Highway 10, Washington Avenue in Racine, the total number of employees, 365. Total number of minorities, 168. So that's 46% of the workforce on that project. And the total number of graduates or trans graduates are 3. So again, we'll incorporate those details into the minutes so that you can look at that more closely, and we can talk more about that at the Labor Advisory Committee. I know we talked a little bit about this at our last meeting. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and break into our subcommittees, and then we'll come back at 11:40 to wrap it up and to give a summary of our discussions and then close our meeting. So we'll see everybody at 20 to 12. Thank you.
This is the goal is to what? And the objective for that first one is take action steps to continuously demonstrate WisDOT commitment. And so, and then we've got a host of strategies that we'll discuss, but after I go through the 7 goals, we'll come back and then we'll have a discussion about the strategies for each one of these. And if we have time at the end, we'll say what's missing. If there's some other things that we need to add, we can add those as well.
You make the view just a little bit bigger.
Yes, I was just gonna ask. My non-lazy guys can't do this.
Okay. I'm sorry about that.
Thank
Can
you.
you see better now?
That's better.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. So with that first goal, again, at the beginning, it's demonstrate WisDOT's commitment to all types of DBEs. Statistics have shown that WisDOT has met the DBE goal, and lots of our conversations have been about WisDOT meeting the goals significantly for women, white women, but not for across the demographics. Goal number 2 focuses on explore innovative approaches to create new types of opportunities, right? And so we got to really start thinking out the box about what that might be. And then the objective, the how, is to continue to provide program resources for mentor proteges. There are a lot of conversation about that the last time to say, well, we need to have specific resources for DBEs or for consultants. The third goal was improve teaming opportunities for small firms. Okay, there's a conversation that we had that small firms just don't get on the teams, and so maybe we can talk some about that. That's the problem. And then the objective, the how is to increase the number of small DBEs on consultant teams, and eventually getting more work. Let's slip down to goal number 4. Facilitate greater opportunities for DBEs. And so this, gets to the actual objective is to figure out, how we can get more contracting opportunities for DBEs and also more consulting opportunities. Unbundling is one of the strategies that we talk about quite a bit. I'm just moving you through the first 7 goals, and then we'll go back up to the top. So if you don't, if you want to stop me now, just hold on. Goal number 5, enhance contractor and DBE relationships to increase DBE utilization. One of the things that we had heard from in our last conversation is sometimes things might be working fine in the DBE office, but it's sometimes the communication breakdown might be between the contractor and the DBE. And so we'll talk about that as well. Goal number 6, identify resources for DBE development. And so that is one, we talked about creating a specific resource for DBE consultants. I thought there was a goal number 7, but I guess not. So let's go back up to the top, and then I want to open it up for discussion. First of all, again, these were ideas that had come out the last time we met, and talked. And so with this first goal of, and these are not in any particular order, so I want to be clear about that. But this first strategy, demonstrate WisDOT's commitment to all types of DBEs. And throughout our conversations, it's been pointed out that there's no challenge with WisDOT meeting the goals. They're meeting the goals, but there's a disparity between how they meet the goals for the different types of demographics for brown and black, DBEs versus women. And so the objective is to take actionable steps to continuously demonstrate that WisDOT is committed to all of them. So here's some strategies that we threw out as a straw man proposal. And then, I'd open it up for conversation and for you to add in or say, take those out, they don't make sense, or here's what we should be talking about when we talk about this. The first item says, show ways that WisDOT has established accountability and measures of success, right? Do we feel like, in terms of not, having, being able to close that disparity gap, among the different types of DBEs, is there accountability or some type of measure that we should be doing? And what might that look like? Then also, we should talk about developing outreach programs to demonstrate that WisDOT is sincere. And they do a lot of outreach programs right now, but are there other things that we need to do? So let me stop there and open it up. Are we all wrong with this? Demonstrate WisDOT's commitment to all types of DBEs. Should that be something different? Or what's your feedback across the goal, objective, or particular strategy? The floor is open.
So I'll jump in and maybe I might be the odd person in the room, but won't be the first time. To me, and I had a similar conversation with MMAC. Obviously, it's a different format. We're looking at major corporations, but the premise is simple and it's straightforward. And I think from a business perspective, everybody can relate to it. You measure what's important. And that's the same conversation we had with the major corporations. If you don't measure it, it's not important. So what I mean by that is if WisDOT is not measuring and actively promoting and demonstrating when they're hitting these DBE goals, it's great. And I'm not knocking that at all. Non-minority women-owned businesses, very important. It's a huge area. But when we're hitting these DBE achievement goals and we're not, to me, showing the ethnicity of how we're achieving these DB achievement goals, we're not actively putting that information out. To me, it demonstrates that maybe it might not be as important. And to me, one of the first things that WisDOT that we can do, and obviously NAMEC, we'll be the first ones to promote this and show this, is when we're hitting these DB achievement goals to show, hey, how does this break down to the different ethnicities? How does this break down to Hispanic, Latinx? How does this break down to African American, especially, and obviously when we look at African American women-owned businesses where it's been nascent in prior years. So real simply is we have to track what's important. And that answers a lot of questions for me.
Okay. So, and then I'll just respond. So at the beginning of, when we first started meeting with the group, we weren't seeing those numbers, but in the last maybe 3 or so meetings, we have seen the breakdown by demographics. And so and that's how we're able to see the disparity. And so that part is being done, but then what do we do from there?
But currently, and I may be wrong, but currently from what I'm seeing, there's a lag. Even
Right.
the last meeting I asked for it, where we have the numbers, there's a 2-month or a 3-month lag on the business side, not on the labor participation. It seems it comes out expeditious on the labor side, but on the business side, it seems there's always a 2 or 3 month lag. And again, I don't work on WisDOT or on, so I can't speak. I don't understand. There's some guidelines and so forth, but my understanding is those from what other states and other NAMECs are doing is that there is a concern there in the disparity, and also that those numbers can be and should be readily available. You can all put all kind of disclaimers on as far as, hey, these are approximate, later to be verified, later to be confirmed. But again, to me, for a 3-month lag on some of those numbers, to me, it shows, hey, are they as important? And then when you're getting it later, what's our opportunity to respond and so forth? So,
okay.
Does WisDOT put out after the letting what DBEs were used? Is there a public listing of who got what jobs on the letting from the subcontractors, from DBE subcontractors?
I'll leave that up to Bob. I can't with the spreadsheet up. I can't see everybody, but Bob, if you're on, maybe you can weigh in. Bob Gutierrez.
I guess, Bob, I can take that.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah.
Scott, thank you, Scott.
So I think what we post online, Brian, is really the prime that is awarded the contract. I don't think that, unless there's something on one of the DBE sites, that we post that, but I don't feel that we do currently.
That's public information though, right? I mean,
I think that it could be, it probably, because when we put them out there, we put them out there as awards. I'm not looking directly at the camera because I'm trying to think in my head what we do. So we post the contracts as the red low, and then the award. Even though we have the commitments at the bid time, maybe once it's executed. But I think it might be maybe it's something that we can I guess I'll have to talk to Leah, because I'm just wondering how much effort that's going to be to pull that stuff and put it in a format that we can be readily done. Because what's done with the primes, it's a pretty automated that it automatically, those things pull in there, but maybe there's some reporting that they're trying to do as part of the update to ASHA where that can help with that.
Okay.
And currently we do not, is the simple answer.
Okay, I mean, I could see places where it could be useful even to the primes to know what DBEs are full and what DBEs have a lot of work, which DBEs have a little work. And I could see that it might be of interest to DBEs to know what their competition is doing. I'm assuming this is public information and it would help answer the questions Ugo has.
I think Rosalind had a hand up and we can help on that question.
In the newsletter in our DB reporter, we always post DBEs performing on DBE contract, not DBE contract, DBE performing on WisDOT contracts. So we do post it in the, you can always look in the newsletter, in the DB reporter newsletter, to see the DBEs who's actually working on DOT projects.
Does it show by project or?
No, it doesn't show by project. It just, I thought you just wanted to know the list of the DBEs who's actually working on projects. It doesn't show, we just give the names and their information, the individual information.
Okay. Well, maybe with some more information, we could get it solve several problems. We could solve the question that Ugo's asking for and some other issues too.
Okay.
If that were published.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to draw.
And I just want to piggyback off Roz, and thanks, Roz. I know, and obviously we don't want to put more on your plate because I know that you're doing a million things on a daily basis. But would it be possible when you're putting that out there? Could we look at that DB or those diverse businesses? Is there any way of looking at their participation as a percentage of what the project was? You know, obviously that's going to the next step because to me that's where the meat of this is at, is how much are ethnic businesses doing in the percentage of our DB participation and how we can grow that. So it's just a thought process.
I can bring that up to Madeline and let her know this is something that you guys are interested in.
Thank you, Rosalind.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to bring us back. Thank you. I'm going to bring us back to the focus of this first question or goal. So the goal is demonstrate WisDOT's commitment to all DBs, and we had conversations about ethnic DBs. And so is there other strategies that we ought to be talking about to really demonstrate for WisDOT to demonstrate what that commitment is? Or other things that you think you ought to see? If you saw this, you would say, wow, WisDOT is really making sure that across the spectrum of DBEs, you know, they're doing well, or WisDOT is really taking some great steps to make sure that they are. Anybody?
Yeah, Ruben, it's Joe. So a lot of stuff right now that I see going through WisDOT's website under the contract law, contract log, is there. I mean, we just have to figure out how to take that data, process that data to get what we need, right? And so I would say, you know, internally within a group, or, you know, if an organization is interested in getting involved in that, I mean, that's something that Brian just talked about, and that is, you know, where is the data? Where is the raw data? And then how do you interpret the data? And so that's out there. The key thing is to find out where it's at, utilize it, and then work within WisDOT to actually get, you know, the forms that prime contractors, and I'm talking about on the construction side, the forms that prime contractors actually submit for utilization of DBEs.
Okay. Do others want to weigh in on that goal? If not, we'll move on to the next. And so, you know, one of the things that once we get, you know, a set of goals and objectives, there'll be some responsibility to talk about, you know, how do we move forward with this? And we'll start continue conversations with the department about are some of these things realistic to change, or maybe some are not. But, you know, you got your opportunity here to kind of help the department think through some of these things. All right. The next goal that emerged in our last meeting was we need to explore innovative approaches to create new type of opportunities. And mentor protege always comes up, as something that we ought to do. But are there other innovative approaches that you can suggest that the department should be doing? Maybe it's a best practice that you've heard from some other industry or some other state. What are some other innovative approaches that WisDOT ought to be taking? Consulting or contracting?
Well, I'll bring up again, I think I mentioned once before, and to see if we can, and then how we can do it. But for example, Florida DOT, for projects under a certain estimated consultant value, they set those projects aside for only DBE firms can pursue. I think it's a contract value of $500,000 or less. Those projects are only allowed to be awarded to DBE firms. And I don't know if we can do that here. I know that the QBS, of course, is always the question of how do you do that? Same is true with the mentor protege program. How do you have projects that can only be pursued or awarded to a mentor protege type team? But that's what I would like to see, if there's some way maybe we can look into how Florida does it, and then see if it's something that can be applicable here in Wisconsin. Abdul mentioned other states. I don't recall which, if it was Missouri or Iowa. He mentioned, and that was in times when things were more lean. He said his experience has been in other states where those states, when times are more lean, they don't allow consultants that are not based in their state to be awarded projects. Things, of course, with the new bill are turning around for everyone, which we're all excited about. But that's another thought too, about how do we perhaps look at that objective as well.
Yeah. Well,
Bruce, if I can add on to that. Madalena and Brenda, one of the things that we were working on and looking at is the use of small purchase contracts, which would go out to a select 3 or 4 firms, and then you respond to that. And that's something that is, I think, in the Southeast. Bob, I'm not sure if Madalena's had that discussion with you, but I believe she was going to look at trying that on a few small projects and see how that works. But that is an opportunity to then target either the newer firms or the smaller firms. And that's
that is
one
great.
of the tools that's available.
That is great, and that's a great tool. And I also want to put for the record that we have been a recipient of that tool. I have a person that's on a small purchase contract, and it's a great contract, and it was a great opportunity for us. And so I certainly say yes, that is great that the DOT is looking at more small purchase contracts.
Yeah, that was something that on the ACEC side we had seen in Indiana and some other states, and we brought that to Madalena, and she looked at it. And so I think, conversations that internally on the DOT side that they've had, and it's something that they move forward.
Yeah, we definitely have listed.
It's a great tool for it's a great tool for firms to demonstrate their qualifications to both the project managers and then you just kind of go from there, right? Certainly we try to do that.
Yeah. In the center there, under the list of strategies, explore small purchase contracting. SPC is one of the items that we actually have identified. So it's good to see that there is support for that. But going back to one of the things that Bruce said earlier about not allowing other consultants from other states during lean times to come in. I don't know if you can do that with federal projects. If it's projects with state funds only, I think you might be able to do that, but you may be restricted from doing that with federal funds. But that's something that certainly we should explore.
You make an interesting point, Ruben. A nuance of that is put goals on state-only funded projects at all here. And maybe that might be something that we could talk to with the state. I mean, they have a state mandate to have minority participation on all state building programs, and yet they exclude the goals from the state-only highway projects.
Yeah.
I've always found that an odd anomaly.
Yeah, well, and I won't get too far in the weeds on that, but the WisDOT construction projects typically come under Chapter 84 of the statutes, and then the MBE program comes under Chapter 16. It has a 5% MBE goal, and so that is on the and you don't necessarily set like a goal on the individual projects, but they expect achievement of 5%. But anyway, that's something that has been a long fight, you know, in the state. And so, but I'll list it down as something that came up.
Hello, Ruben. Just two things I want to add. One is circling back to the prior number one. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. We talked about the data, obviously, on a macro level to show the participation as an overall concern. But I also, to kind of answer that other question, is looking at the micro, the success stories. I think as we're promoting the information as far as the data, as far as participation, ethnic breakdown, but also on the micro level, looking at some of the success story, kind of piggybacking off of what Roslyn talked about when you have the ethnic and the DBE contractors that have had success on major projects. Look at some of the not just the what, but also how. How was this DBE firm able to have success on this major project? Obviously, even more importantly, or equally importantly, looking at how ethnic diverse businesses were able to have success, highlighting that success and best practices learned, I think would be helpful to our constituents, and also would again motivate more DBE firms to participate when they see the success and how they were able to achieve success. And then circling to our, oh, I'm sorry.
So that's a great idea.
Yeah, and then circling to the current part, and hopefully I'm not getting too far ahead, but just kind of piggybacking off the I think Bruce was mentioning earlier, the small projects, but also looking at when you said unbundling, which I don't know sure if that's
that's coming up. That's coming up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll be quiet then.
That's right. Yeah, that's coming up. So anybody else on this, explore innovative approaches, and we can combine unbundling with this part, you know, as well. I can go down and maybe we can just get right into that. Let's see.
So the only thing, the reason why I mentioned it now is because to me, when we look at unbundling, I think the key word, and I mentioned the last time, I'll mention again, that's missing is strategic unbundling. And I think when you don't put that in there, it's not unbundling to unbundle sex. I think everyone looks like, hey, that's a whole bunch of work. But when you look at it strategically, and I think that's what I see missing, because you talk about what were things that should be strategies. So you talk about it from a strategy standpoint, you know, and again, this is stuff that you probably, well, you know better than I do. You know, when we look historically, these are things that WisDOT has done before historically on major projects that were very successful. They increased not just DBE participation, but they increased ethnic diverse business participation. When you can strategically have consultants that are, you know, looking at a $400 million project or a $500 million project and say, you know what, hey, we can carve out this amount of business because we know we have demonstrated capacity currently of ethnic diverse businesses or DBEs in this particular industry, and how can we, obviously legally, how can we set aside or how can we carve out business from a major project, you know, for participation, because we know we can unbundle it, because we know we have firms that can participate competitively, and I think when you look at that from that standpoint, it makes sense on so many aspects, because you have diverse owned firms, whether they're non-minority women owned or ethnic diverse owned, that can't do they can't be competitive in a wide amount of products and or services. But when you narrow it down, they can be more competitive when they when you unbundle it, and it provides more value to the entire project. But
okay,
just my
so
two
look,
cents.
so
Hey,
I want
Ruben,
to,
can I jump in here?
yeah, go right ahead.
So, you know,
Oh, that's our Joe. Okay, go ahead.
yeah. On the construction side, encourage DBEs to do a couple of things. Joint ventures, right? It increases their capacity to do a lot more work, right? We have already encouraged Kenny Buford over at the Kenny Company to partner with Clear Cut Solutions, which is Quinn Long. So now not only do they have the opportunity to do landscaping, clearing and grubbing, but now they have concrete sawing. And so either they can do a joint venture, or what they can do is they can subcontract and actually, you know, and some of these prime contractors are interested to meet the goal, to forego some of those things that they're self-performing to meet those goals. So that's one thing I would recommend, is that DBEs can play in that space by creating these joint ventures and bidding on these, or submitting quotes, so that, you know, they increase their capacity. And then the last thing I will say is that I've had an opportunity to talk to some women-owned companies, like folks from Arbor Green, and they're interested in sitting down and talking to folks about their success. But just remember, when you're ready to sit down and talk to them, it ain't been easy for them. It ain't been easy for white women sometimes to play in a male-dominated white male industry. So they don't tell you exactly what they had to overcome, and some of the other things, how they had to actually put their financial situations ahead of, you know, the company becoming profitable. So I would just say that when we sit down and we have that conversation, like Ugo has suggested, is that we must understand that they've experienced what I consider some unjust stuff, like Bess Crawley over at Crawley Construction, getting into the business and finding themselves at a disadvantage also. So it'll be a good conversation. And I think when you come to the table, understanding that, I think there's some good things that may come out of it.
Yeah. So one of that could be one of the action items that we from this group can kind of explore, and maybe, you know, and I don't know how willing they would be to talk maybe to this group about some of their challenges or some of their experiences, or some of their, I know they'd probably be willing to talk about the best practices, but maybe some of the other challenges they might be a little reluctant to talk about in front of a group, but maybe privately we can have those conversations. But I do think that those would be two good companies for at least meeting that aspect that we brought up earlier about, like, looking at, you know, a company that has grown and a company that has done well, and learning from them. Okay. All right. So we move.
Ruben, if
go
sorry,
right ahead.
if I could, Trevor with Payne and Dolan.
Okay.
The last two goals, goal 3 and goal 4, they're similar in that it's expanding opportunities for DBEs. One, greater opportunities, the other, new opportunities. I guess with that, the only thing I don't want to have us lose sight of is that it would seem to me that a lot of the quotes we're getting from DBEs are from the same pool of DBEs, and they, I think, will agree that they have plenty of opportunities within DOT work, that they're happy with those opportunities and the amount of capacity, you know, basically that they reach a level of full capacity every year. With creating opportunities for them, I don't think that necessarily increases our percentage of involvement. I think we need to make sure that conversations are being had on ahead of that, you know, the early development of DBEs and helping to increase that pool of DBEs.
Okay, so Trevor, you bring up a good point. You bring up the point that, so, I mean, we can create more opportunities, but there might not be DBEs there to do the work if you did it, because there's a limited pool of DBEs that are actually, you know, coming to you as subcontractors looking to partner. Is that a good
Yes,
summary?
sir.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. All right. All right. Anybody else? I know we've been jumping all over the place. I let Ugo take me to 4 when we were up at 2, but I thought, and I'm gonna finish up 4, and then we'll go back up to where we left off. But we started talking about strategies, and here in 4 we talked about how we can have greater opportunities for DBEs, and we went right to unbundling, which sometimes is it seems like the easy thing to go to. But are there other strategies that we could look at? And so, for example, at one point in time, WisDOT did a thing called mandatory subcontracting, where sometimes on a contract, they would see that maybe landscaping or some other item on a contract might be more conducive to DBEs, and they would manage the subcontracting part. That's an opportunity. I'm not suggesting that that's what we do, but I'm just throwing it out there for discussion purposes. And then early on, we had the conversation about having contracts be exclusively for DBEs. Sometimes you could have small business contracts, right? It's race neutral, but you can put contracts out there and just say we're looking to get small businesses in there. Is that an idea? What ideas do you have for facilitating greater opportunities for DBEs? What are some strategies we ought to be looking at? Are any of these strategies ones that we think that makes sense?
When we tried and used as WisDOT, that's the giant we, in Wisconsin, some of these alternate strategies of delivery, we did it in the context, at least to begin with, of the market interchange. Do we have any visibility? I saw the president announced another funding initiative yesterday during that bridge opening in DC. Do we have any visibility into what the future holds for mega projects? Has that changed recently? Is that, do we have time to look at this and talk about doing things in that sphere with big projects?
Well, Scott or Dwayne, are you guys still on?
I'm still on, Ruben.
Anticipating any mega projects coming down the pipeline anytime soon?
There's quite a few majors or megas still in the works. There's 41. There is, I think the Southwest region is starting to evaluate 539, 90, 94, essentially from the Beltline interchange north 47 miles to the northernmost Wisconsin Dells exit. So if you're familiar with it, it's the Rocky Arbor State Park exit. So that's quite a stretch there. Bob, what projects do you guys have lined up on your region and that?
Yeah, so obviously we got a few more contracts on the I-43 majors project. And that takes care of the majors, but we do have a large backbone program. You're talking, $58 million packages. That's nothing to sneeze at, right? They're not a reconstruction, but it's a lot of dollars. So we have those on our corridors that are coming up. I-43 was let recently, but we still have some north of the zoo that'll be coming online. And then we will continue to ask for Southeast Freeways appropriation for the reconstruction of the Southeast Freeway. So yes, that would include the east-west, and then any other corridors, 894 corridor, as we see in the future, having things ready. Going back to the backbone program and large bridge structures, lake interchange, somewhere down the line. We just solicited for that on the consultant side, and had made a selection, and that did have a goal for DBE participation on that one. So Let's see what else. Oh, the Mitchell interchange is gonna get resurfaced, and then 894 is gonna be resurfaced soon. So just a ton of work.
Yeah. So Bob, so is there a chance, opportunity for innovation on any of those, like not a set aside, but a carve out, just saying that we would debundle a piece of that, we would look at those projects and talk about medium or low risk, possibilities that a part of that, could be pulled out. It wouldn't slow down the project, or anything, but it could give an opportunity for a DBE to prime, to prime that, as a debundled opportunity.
Yeah, certainly both on professional side, as we do our quality-based selections, we can pull out certain items on that, whether it's in design or construction management services. We can certainly look at, possibilities of breaking up those. On the construction end of things, unbundling, of course, is a little bit more difficult. We want to make sure that we, if we do unbundle, say, a certain portion of the project, that it's not on the critical path of that, right, of that project. And we want to make sure we continue to have the competitive environment that we have in the state of Wisconsin. So if we do unbundle, I don't think we have the opportunity to say that it's just for a specific, but it would provide smaller, a smaller project for DBEs to prime in then. I think Matt had his hand up, so.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, my only comment is just think this through thoroughly before you go in this direction. We've discussed this before, and it has happened. I remember it happened up on the 41 project where this was done. I think the key is to, if you're thinking about going in this direction, talk to DBEs before you even go down this road. Because in the case that I'm talking about is there was some question about it, and they pulled out some minor parts of the project, say I believe it was fencing or something like that. And as it turns out, it kind of, quite honestly, it worked in the reverse way, where as it turns out, there was no DBs that bid the work. And when they were questioned afterwards, they said, well, we really would have had an opportunity if we could have simply quoted it, but we didn't want to be the prime. So everybody talks about prime and being a prime and this and that, which is great if you have the capacity or if you're set up to do so. But with being a prime comes some additional risk too. So it's something that really needs to be thought through to see if it actually benefits the DBs or even the smaller contractors. It's probably not even a DB issue. It's a small business, like Ruben said. It's not always as good as it seems to do something like that. So I think talk to the DBs or talk to the small contractors.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Matt, to make there. But the other thing is you have the mandatory kind of subcontract piece if you don't want to go that prime route, and you could still hold off like a portion of work for that small business. But that, again, it's just thrown out there. So I really appreciate that. Others on ways to create greater opportunities for DBEs or innovative approaches.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback off of the prior point, but I think it's definitely a great point. I think the key word again, circling back, is strategic. You have to. I definitely agree. There has to be a demonstrated capacity in that area. I think also kind of even going back to some of the things that Joe mentioned, where might be where there might be a couple of DB firms that can maybe team up regarding to a certain area. But I think the key word again has to be strategic. You have to get somebody that comes in on an early stage to be able to look at what some of the opportunities are, and then also look at DBE firms. So because I agree, it's a more of a small business area, is look at firms that have demonstrated capacity to perform in those areas. Just obviously, just don't unbundle for unbundling's sake. It's got to be strategic.
Yeah, yeah, and earlier, it wasn't Matt, I think it was Trevor from Payne and Dolan. He said one of the things is the firms that are actually bidding and things like that, you know, some of them may not have that additional capacity, you know, to do stuff, and maybe there might not be firms out there. So is there approach where we need to be talking about like growing, you know, new, startup DBE firms and on design or consultant side? Is that, you know, something that the department ought to be considering with their supportive services? And is that a timely enough strategy for when you might have all these federal projects coming through?
Well, I think, and I'll just speak for NAMEC. I think you know, this is right up our wheelhouse. One thing that we're doing right now, we're working even very aggressively even today to find resources that we can help, you know, as we continue to help build the capacity of our firms right now. Because yeah, I think there are firms right now that with some additional capacity. Again, I've been there as a business owner, continue to be there. Is how do we, you know, there's some firms that are right on the cusp of being able to perform in a bigger way on these bigger projects. But again, they do need the capacity building, whether it's financial, accounting, financial resources, looking at how they grow their labor force. So one of the things that we are aggressively doing is how can we build the preparedness of NAMEC members who are almost ready. I think some of the great work that Joe's doing also, you know, but yeah, that's a strong focus of NAMEC right now, and we're looking at additional resources, how we can get people more full-time doing that work.
And if I can just kind of thanks Ugo for that recognition. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that CBG is going to have its winter conference. It's actually at the spring conference at the Kalahari, April 21st and 22nd. And what Madalena and also Trevor Wallner from the Wallback Group, we're going to actually have an in-depth discussion after the secretary gives his remarks on DBE's capacity growing, bringing new DBEs in the line, and actually getting them funding so that they can actually cover their capital costs on the construction side. So if anybody's interested, there's no registration fee, and it'll be a 2-day conference. So if anybody's interested in it, you can drop me an email and I'll send you out all of the necessary information. I didn't want to put stuff in the chat, but if you're interested, just give me a holler or whatever. I have to drop off this call because I have a meeting at 11:30. So Godspeed to everybody. Thanks,
Okay,
man.
thank you for your time.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else on how we can facilitate greater opportunities or come up with more innovative ways to bring DBs into the mix?
Well, one of the other past topics I've heard from professional services side anyway, I think it would be of help too, is it was mentioned that the DOT is also looking statewide at asking project managers, both within their region and other regions, to go outside the box and choose a consultant firm that they haven't worked with before. So that is something I hope is, well, I'm not hope, I'm sure it is still in the planning process, and something that the DOT is looking to make sure the project managers do consider. And so I'm looking forward to that. I think that that's already been a step that's been put in place that's going to be helpful for my firm.
Okay, and so I'll include that under one of these goals that where it fits most appropriately. But we need to think about, you know, how do you track and measure, you know, whether that happens. So be thinking about that. Other excuse me, other ideas or input about greater opportunities or innovative opportunities. All right, so I'm going to go back up to the top where we left off here. So we're on, I guess goal 3 is the same thing. We talked about, you know, some of these things can be combined with what we just discussed, but you know, a lot of times, you know, you might be prohibited from, you know, saying do this for a minority-owned firm, but you know, small business opportunities give you a chance to get more creative, and so this goal 3, focuses on improving teaming opportunities for small firms, right? And I don't know if it was Bruce or someone else the last time we met to say, if you don't get on the teams early, you don't, you don't make the team. You got to get on the teams, during the when they're doing the planning early out. And so, are there suggestions about one? Is this something that we ought to be spending more time on, or are there additional things that we should be doing about this, helping small firms get on these teams and get more work with WisDOT? This is on the design side, but also on the construction side as well. So increase the number of small DBE consultants as an objective. And then here's some of the strategies that were listed. Provide training on consultants, because sometimes you just got to know what to do, right? So maybe that might be one of the strategies is provide training, Bruce. Provide training on the project development process. Sometimes, the smaller firms, may not know, the entire project development process of when it's most strategic to kind of start, trying to build partnerships. And then the other thing is relationships are a big deal. Consultants and contractors both, they want to make sure that they mitigate their risk. So, if they're not familiar with your firm, and they don't get to know you, they might be reluctant to pick you. But these are some of the strategies that we talked about, in terms of at least being able to make progress in this area. Is this out of the box, or is this something that we should scratch off, or something that we should pursue? Am I the only one still on here?
It's a little bit out of my area, but I'll comment on it. I mean, on the consultant end of things, it's not totally unrelated to the contracting end of things. Either way, you need to perform. So I think the key is to analyze what's your niche, and where do you have the qualifications? Where do you have the individuals for the consultants? It would be who are my strong individuals, and how do I offer them up to a team? They're in the same situation where you're looking at, you have to have productive individuals that are going to help that team, and you figure out where, what's the scope of it, and where do I fit in? I think there's a lot of opportunity, but the communication end of it, and that is absolutely critical. But it's more than that. It's understanding what exactly is needed from a qualification basis, and it's tough right now because finding really solid engineers and things like that's very difficult. Understand that, but it's just the overall process, building your niche, and then marketing it.
Okay, yeah. Hey, Matt. While I got you, the second part of the objective talks about it from the construction side, and it says, exploring how DBEs might, smaller DBEs might partner on larger projects, and we kind of talked some about that, and I think Bruce or someone suggested the joint venturing. Is that a strategy, that might work during these times, given the fact that, I think Trevor brought up earlier that sometimes there's not enough DBEs out there to even be considering doing some of this stuff. But what's your feedback?
Yeah, so let's start with joint ventures. That's not, I think that gets used out of context a little bit. I mean, the purpose of a joint venture typically is to team up in order to have the ability to have bonding capacity.
Okay.
And so when you get in that situation, you're in an exclusive type of situation where you're working together essentially as one new company. Not always the greatest opportunity. I mean, more so, I think it comes back down to building that relationship, letting them know who you are. I mean, the capacity issue isn't just a DBE issue. It's in our process, you're looking for as many quotes and as many, potential low bids as you can get, to try to ensure that you get the work. But I think there's probably, certainly, and has been in the past, opportunities to communicate well and then get together as a team and understand what the prime's looking for. But the joint venture itself, I don't see a lot of that, with the exception of the mega projects where we've got larger companies that are teaming up to fulfill those bonding requirements.
So Matt, can you hang right there, because the joint venture, I guess, can be looked at from different vantage points. So that's the vantage point from where you have primes, partnering together, maybe for a mega project or something like that. But joint venturing from the context of the DBE is, coming on to expand their capacity and expand their ability to participate or grow skills on the project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that more of a partnering, but
Yeah.
the concept makes sense. But it does, on the other hand, it does limit a DB's ability to get on multiple teams and potentially win the work, no matter who gets it as a prime.
Okay.
So you got to look at it from both angles.
Yeah.
But from a communication and almost I guess bordering on a mentor protege type thing, certainly an opportunity. I don't know exactly what the rules and pitfalls are for that.
Yeah.
But you get into more of an exclusive type situation versus an opportunity to be on essentially numerous bids.
Yeah. And so you almost would have to have a joint venture, included in the contract language, to say once you get the contract, you have to commit to establishing a joint venture. I worked on some projects out in the East Coast, but most of them have been design build projects where they have asked contractors in the before they actually are able to participate in the process, they put together a utilization plan. And then there might be some goals about, in that utilization plan, maybe you have to demonstrate a joint venture. So you don't have to pick the joint venture before you get the work, but after you get the work, you really need to show, how you might use that joint venture. But I don't know if that's too creative for this, for this state, but it's certainly something that's being used in other places.
Or whether it's necessarily beneficial for a smaller contractor or a DBE. So if you become a formalized joint venture, at that point, do you, risk reward? At that point, do you take on some of the risk that a prime contractor would have, for example? I can't really answer that. It's the kind of a definition, what's joint venture versus a team versus simply being a subcontractor, whatever.
Okay. All right. So it's a strategy, but a strategy that may have a lot of risks that come along with it, as well, and then different contexts for how it might be used. Anybody else, or as we talk about teaming strategies for small consultants and small contractors?
Ruben, this is Dave. Weighing in, I agree with Matt. On the consultant side, the joint ventures are, to go after a mega or a larger project, and it's usually established before going after the project. It's more of a contractual arrangement, how you're going to handle the business side of it. I think it's about relationships. It's taking advantage of getting into these networking. We just did it at the DBE workshop. Typically on the large projects, WisDOT will set up an opportunity ahead of time for some networking, but it's going to those sessions as a DBE and what's my value? What am I bringing? What can I add to these teams? And I think that's where the primes are looking to hear. And it's really about getting to know the other and getting that comfort level, whether it's through a mentor protege or a small piece that can be broken off. That's kind of how the consultants are looking at it. But the primes are definitely open to it, but we need to know a little bit more. What's that niche? What's that value? Is it something I don't have? And it's about building relationships.
Yeah. So that's good. So it really
how do pre-bid meetings fit into that? As you talk about finding a niche and having relationships, and we've talked about mega projects and big projects coming up. It seems to me we have to get the information out to people to allow them time to form these relationships, sort of take a look at what the work is or figure out what their niche is. the more information people have, the more they can pre-plan to be ready to position their companies.
On the design side, consultant side, WisDOT is trying. They're getting 2-week look-aheads on even the monthly solicitations. Typically on these major or mega projects, they're getting a 3-month or longer out there and saying, "Hey, this is coming. Start, thinking about it." And it starts happening at 3 months out, 2 months out. So the more information, they're trying to get that information out there as soon as they can to allow for some of that, and then it's taking advantage of when that information does come out.
Yeah, and I agree. I concur with those. Obviously, staying in my lane, but look on the construction side, the contracting side, the visibility of the information, the pre-bid meetings become huge. How you can look at what's coming down what's coming up. Obviously, in the pre-bid meetings, as Brian mentioned, I mean, those are huge as far as the information. And then, last but not least, I do spot on as far as the relationship building. When you're able to identify, when you're able to be in the same room, whether virtually, obviously, preferably in person, and looking at the projects, looking at the opportunities, looking at the niche markets that will be touched. And obviously, there's going to be, again, there'll be DBE, smaller firms in general that will have specialties in some niche areas, but being able to have that relationship building opportunity with those primes, especially the construction contracting side, is going to be huge.
Right. Anybody else want to add?
Ruben, I have as Dave was talking, Ugo was talking, a thought that came to my mind is, how do we engage when a lot of the projects we talked about today are in Bob's area? How do we communicate to some of these DBE contractors when we are having public meetings? And because obviously these projects are huge projects, the planning for them and the design of them takes a long time to get to construction. How can we get some of that information to them? So if they're not always going to have the time to go to a PIM, but if they can be engaged in some of the discussions of, okay, this is what this project's going to entail, and to help them plan so that in 2022 they see a project that's going to be built in 2025, that they say, oh yeah, this east-west is going to be coming up in 25, 26, I can't remember what the year is, but how do we share some of that information very early on in the planning and the design of it, so that the contractor can see some of this stuff and then realize, like, hey, this probably is going to have a project that I'm going to have some skills that I can use on that.
That's a great idea. And so I don't know if Roz is still on, but I know with the publication that WisDOT has in the past, when I was there, we used that a lot to talk about projects, and we had a piece, a strategy called Bullseye Marketing, where if we knew that there were some good, possibilities for using DBEs on a certain type of work, we would kind of highlight that. Roz, I don't know if that still happens.
That's something we can definitely add and include. I remember back in the day when you were the deputy secretary, we talked about that. So yes, Bullseye Marketing.
Yeah, and I just mean, Scott, the early information about, the type of work that'll be coming out and getting that into the hands of DBEs early, I think is a great idea.
And I think just to piggyback off of that, I think the information is definitely huge, and also looking at, we mentioned, obviously, Joe talking about the data also, but I think there's a step further. There's another step piece, and again, I think that's where NAMAC comes in, and we're working to get somebody who can more full-time be applicable to this. But it's also about, how do you get NAMAC, how does NAMAC involve our members to be able to talk about, here's why, here are some of the success stories. When you're talking about something in 2025, there's got to be, just from a business owner perspective, there's got to be someone that can be able to relay the value to you, because sometimes the newsletters are great, but I think, when you grab that newsletter, you grab that data, and then you're able to have another intimate conversation, to say, hey, this is why your small business should invest in this, because this is what we see coming down. And you're able to talk about that, break down the data, break down the information, and then also talk about some of the best practices learned, and being able to show the value to that person. And then again, also, while you're having that, concomitantly, looking at starting to build the relationship opportunities. You know, it's as mentioned earlier, you know, when you're seeing things that are coming down 1, 2, 3 years later and they're big mega projects, this is the time now. We all know this doesn't happen overnight, but that to me is again where you know, NAMAC comes in to start building the relationship, start showing what the data, what this information means, and how our small businesses can start investing in these areas to be ready.
Ugo, a lot of that information and, you know, what Scott's referring to, I think for the contractor side, the DOT has a great website as far as study projects that are out there. It contains all the information from the PIMs. It contains what the, you know, the alternatives are going to look like, what's going to be involved in it. And I think getting started back, having somebody digging into that information that's out there 2 or 3 years ahead of time allows you to prepare for it. And so all that, a lot of that information is there and available for contractors to look ahead. And specifically, it's broken out by region and by roadway. And so I think you can see, okay, what's happening on the east-west, what's happening on I-39, all those, that information does get shared out there. And like Scott said, you may not be able to go to the PIM, but what's shared at the PIM and all that data is all there.
Yep. So how do you suggest that DBEs, so DBEs just have to go and read it, or do we have to have a communication strategy or something to really kind of put it in front of DBEs or potential DBEs?
I think it's a communication strategy that we can get out there and say, okay, here's where it is, here's what to be looking for. And, you know, you set up a point on your calendar every, you know, 2 months or whatever, hey, I've got to go look at this and see what updates are out there. And I think there is a communication strategy. We can get out there and help educate firms on where the information is and how to use it.
So Dave, I guess I'd make a comment real quick. I agree with you. And I agree with Ugo in his in the efforts NAMAC is taking. I would just pass on the observation. In this position, I've worked with mentor protege arrangements, and I've talked to many mentor proteges nationally who are in those relationships. And the thing that stands out to me is that large organizations and large contractors have the resources to be proactive, and that small businesses by nature are reactive because they haven't got the resources to do it. The guy who's running the business and doing the estimating is probably the same guy who's taking out the trash and meeting with the banker and talking with HR and dealing with his insurance company also. And so they find it difficult to be proactive because of that lack of resources. So just a comment as we talk to and try to attract small businesses into this. It's just in the back of our minds as we think about them.
Yeah. So in our discussion today, we got through goals 1 through 4, and then for our next meeting, we'll go through goals 5 and 6. But if I just wanted to kind of get us going in a conversation about goals and a strategy and a plan for how to better engage, but also, you know, how we might have some innovative approaches to come forward. We've got about 2 more minutes before they zap us back into the other room. So I definitely want to give you an opportunity, anybody, to say that there's something that you're missing here. You know, I know you've laid out, you know, 6 goals, you know, here, and we've gone through 4 of them, and we've had conversations that have gone all over the place. But here's something that you're missing. Is there anything that we're missing in this conversation that might be helpful to enhancing the relationship between DBEs and WisDOT, or that's a strategy that might be helpful in generating greater DBE utilization or more effective DBE utilization?
Hey, Ruben, one of the things that the region here is meeting with industries. We have an annual meeting with industries. So the Asphalt Pavers Association is going to be coming in.
Okay.
Concrete Association is going to be coming in. The earthwork movers will be coming in. And that's a time where we share our upcoming projects, quantities, information, and then but we also talk about obviously important concerns with each one of these industries and their efforts. So I mean, although you know those are open. for an opportunity to also.
So are you saying that DBEs ought to be coming in, maybe NAMAC and other groups like the Black Chamber and other groups should be coming in as well? Yeah.
You just took it to another place. I thought they would participate as members of these associations, but yeah, absolutely, Ruben. We could do the same with NAMAC or
Latino Chamber.
Or let NAMAC direct it to those contractors who do that type of work so that they can be involved too or get the information. Excellent networking opportunities.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. So I just kind of wanted to give you all a flavor of kind of where Madalena and I were going with the discussion. So now it's time to roll up our sleeves and talk about, are we going to generate or come to some plan, from our meetings here? And so, we can have a few more robust discussions, but at the end of the day, we need to be getting to a point of being ready to do something, right? And the department has, offered its time and its resources, and they seem to be willing to kind of make something happen. So I'm like, bring your ideas. If there's other folk that need to participate in this meeting, that might have additional information that we don't have, now's the time for us to make it happen, because we've got the department's ear, and so they're looking to you for some good ideas. And today you've given us quite a bit, So Scott, I don't know if you or Bob would like to say anything before they whisk us back into the bigger room.
All right, I think there's some really great ideas here, and I guess I really like the last one actually, and trying to work with the DBE communities and have some of these more framed discussions with the regions on the opportunities that are going to be out there for them.
Yeah,
I think it just makes another connection, and I think it gets us in a situation where we're having these conversations and these relationships and these contracts, because I know I say this almost every time we're in it. I see this as a huge benefit for the department in the state of Wisconsin, that we're pulling more firms into this industry, and an industry that's in dire need of more people in it. And I just think it's I don't know, Bob, you got anything to say? It seems like I'm rambling, so.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, in the past, we've had mandatory pre-bid meetings, right? We've had 90% plans out on the street. We may have even at one point in time had 60% plans for one of the larger projects, just so that people know what was coming down the pike. And certainly, those things are really effective to get that information out early.
Yeah, Brian, is your hand up, or is it just stuck up from the last time that you weighed in?
I'm on all sorts of these conference Teams, Zoom meetings, and I got my hand up and I can't remember how I did it or how to take it down. So
just go hit reactions at the top of the box, and then hit reactions, that little circle, and then it'll allow you to take down. But anyway.
There you go.
thank you.
Back up again.
Yeah. We're gonna take your mouse away from you if you do that again. No, I'm just messing with you. Hey, anybody else out there, want to kind of weigh in? I really appreciate all the candid feedback. I think it's these types of conversations and gives us an opportunity to kind of build a transparent relationship and have tough conversations, but conversations that will be good for the industry and good for the department. And so I'm excited about what we're doing here. Hopefully, there'll be a few things to come out of these planning discussions that will really help increase the level of DBE participation that we have. Now, is there anybody on here that didn't get an opportunity to say something? I see some names that I'm not familiar with, but if any comments that you want to make, this is too new for me. I like to, maybe you can do it a different way next time. Weigh in, now's the time.
Hey, Ruben, this is Rosalind. I just want to add two items that came to my mind: expansion.
Okay.
And also expansion into some of the other regions. How can we do that? How can we have DBs expand into other regions? And also how can we connect the youth? You know, Randy Crump has his RISE program where he helps the students in engineering. And we also have the program called TRACK. I know you remember that. So how can we bridge those gaps, you know, and how can we get the young people involved? So
Ross, that's a great question. And I think that's a question for the DOT is like one of the successes to being able to have ready, willing, and able DBEs is to build a pipeline, right? And that's the same thing in the trades. And I work probably closer with the trades today than I work with consulting or anything else. And for us to be successful in our work, we have to do planning and training for the pipeline. So are there opportunities, you know, for those types of things, you know? Scott, I know I've been putting you on the spot, you know, quite a bit. Next meeting, you probably dodge us and not come, but no, we, but we definitely need to have some conversation about that too, because that's where it starts, you know, with the next level of engineers coming out of Marquette first, and then UW-Madison second, and then also. What's that?
Or Madison first and then Marquette. I don't know. One of the two.
UWL.
not Whitewater.
Yeah, all three of those are my alma maters: Marquette, UWM, and UW-Madison, but Marquette first. Yeah.
All great schools.
All great schools. Yeah. So we're 7 minutes ago. They should have bounced us back into the other meeting, and
they already sent us. They are sending us the message to join the large meeting.
Okay. All right. So thank you all for, having a lively conversation today. We'll finish it off in our next meeting, and we'll talk about where we go from there.
So you all came up with some objectives, and I'd like to spend our time starting to walk through these objectives and also starting to create strategies. So this is where I want to hear from you all. And yes, definitely apology that it didn't get out to you because there would have been, the goal was to get out to you and for you to start filling in. But please feel free. I want this to be interactive. I want to have this conversation, and we can get as far as we can through it. If we're having good conversation, you know, don't feel rushed that we're trying to get through this document. So we'll just throw the first one out there. Find and recruit good talent. Does anybody have any thoughts on that as a strategy? What that strategy looks like?
Josh, I'll throw out, it's Andrea with Zignego Ready Mix and NAWIC, that, you know, as we reach into some of the younger grades, so going back into high school, before students are making some of those choices, getting into the tech ed programs. And I think we also discussed how do you involve buy-in from the parents so that they're viewing these as, you know, good choices that students are going for construction related jobs. So I think, you know, maybe taking a look at the groups that are out there currently doing that and having some of those conversations in a large group setting is pretty important.
This is Tracy with Wellbeck Group. To add to Andrea's comment about the school, I'm going to stress the work-based learning. So when we're talking to the schools, let's talk about youth apprenticeship a little bit more, because outreach is one piece, but really connecting the high school kids to doing the type of work that they're going to be hired for, you know, in heavy highways, a little bit different world than some of the other industries. And I also wanted to, maybe we can add in here, and I know that this goes without saying, but we really should be connecting stronger and harder with the trans program. And so for those that aren't getting hired out of it, you know, looking at why, but to make sure that we are using the pool of candidates that are in the road building trans classes as a feeder for us. And that's a small base. I know we're talking like larger, right? But let's not forget that piece too.
Definitely a very important part, especially because with it being a certified pre-apprenticeship, obviously the individuals going through that program are learning the skills needed to succeed on a highway job, right? So definitely, when we're talking about more advanced, 1 and 2, that's really starting to get to that's getting to the root of it, which is it's about education, information. We have to get word out about what it is, about what the industry is offering and those opportunities. Very good strategies.
This is Renard. I think it's also very important to make sure we have really solid relationships built with those administrations in these different schools, whether it be high school, whether it be middle school, that it's not just something that we offer, basically as an alternative, but that it's something that we can communicate effectively to administrators so we can get a real buy-in from those administrations themselves.
Very good. Very good, Renard. Agreed.
And then I think another facet of that is switching from this idea of the schools and the younger crowd. Is there a link with veteran programs where we have adults who might be re-entering the workforce after having provided service to our country? Is there a link there where we have people who might already have a good set of skills? They might have some certifications for whatever it is that they're working in. Are we utilizing that aspect of the workforce?
And let's not forget the other part of the workforce, the reentry population.
Yep.
I know that some of this we've talked about and it's in our head, but that really could be a really good strategy if it's done correctly.
Agreed. Also linking to your local vocational rehabilitation. It's another area. All right, good. Those are some good ones. Leah, did we want to move to like team responsibilities or do we just kind of want to start going down the objectives?
I think I would suggest going down
Okay.
if everyone's okay with that approach, and then we can come back and deal with that later.
Sounds good. All right, really good. We can move on unless anybody else has anything they want to throw in under the first one. Yes, Joe.
Hi, it's Joe Casti. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties this morning, but can we just add to number 1, outreach to schools, also nonprofit organizations that serve youth, like Running Rebels and Journey House and Boys and Girls Club, like wherever we can get to our youth. I just feel like they're, especially now coming back from the pandemic, they're just so they're just needing as much information and outreach that they can get from us, and this is a great opportunity to connect them with job opportunities as they grow into young adults.
Definitely agreed. Great.
Josh, one more thing with that, actually, as she said that, I think when I mentioned the trans class, we're assuming, okay, trans is a certified pre-apprenticeship program. I'm wondering though, a link to with the statewide certified pre-apprenticeship programs, all of the different CBOs, that have the youth programs in them, like she's saying, but also that are running the certified pre-apprenticeship programs that could be a feeder for hiring for employers.
Okay.
This is great, you guys. Great brainstorming here. This is wonderful.
Really quick, ladies and gentlemen, when looking at that young population again, really getting them prepared not just with some of the information on the trades, but as a trans provider, making sure that these young people know if this is something, I mean, as early as possible. And again, if this is something they really are serious about and want to try to attempt to access, that having that driver's license, all those qualifications that we have, being set to pass these apprenticeship exams, if that can come into play as soon as possible for those young men and women who might identify themselves as wanting to enter the industry, making sure that they're introduced to an irresistible resume. Those are all the things that are really critical, and especially in the trans program to ensuring success.
So Renard, can you hang on to that? Because I think there's a place to put that maybe under supports. But I like your what you're thinking here. It might go in a different area as Joshua goes through the objectives with us.
No problem. Good.
But don't forget, it's a good one.
All right, we can move down to improve number 2, which is improve work culture in the industry. So I'm going to throw out the first one, and Leah always laughs when I do this, when I say it and when we're around people, is we have to rebrand the way we talk about the industry. We can't talk about the industry no longer as it's hard work, it's dirty work. We can't talk about the industry like that, because I've said this before. I'm 44. If you tell me something's going to be hard, you're probably not going to get me engaged. I'll go want to do what's easy. I don't want to do what's hard. Not at this point in my life. So we really have to rebrand the way we talk about the industry. And that's really key as well when we're in our underserved communities. Because when we say the word hard in the underserved community, it doesn't mean the same thing as when we say it to a white guy, which is, yeah, this is going to be hard. When you say it in an underserved community, it actually sounds like you're creating a barrier for them and letting them know you're not going to be able to do this. It's really hard. So we just have to be very careful about how we talk about it.
And I guess I don't know if what I'm going to say goes under this, but when I think of work culture, improving it, it's really about, developing that employee-employer relationship and having somebody feel like they're in a good workplace. And so I'm going to always throw out mentoring because that leads to retention. And I'm not sure if that's the right place to put it, but when I see improve work culture, what we've seen with our mentoring program here, that it everything that is a domino effect, the communication, the positive feedback from it, the transparency, the communication, all of that then in turn leads to an improved work culture.
Agreed.
So I have 2 comments here. One, from the NAWIC side, we have a DE&I committee nationally, and we have, I can't even think of the phrase that we use. It's like, I think it's Toss It Tuesday. Toss out language like hard or difficult or dirty. And we actually have kind of a rebranding that we're doing among our membership. What are the alternate words? Satisfying, gratifying, ownership. I can see I made that. So that's one thing that we do on the NAWIC side, is we actually actively do that, and that's a facet of our social media marketing. So it kind of fits in this bucket of number 2, improve work culture, and goes down into number 3, the item that just went off screen about attracting younger people. How, people don't want emails. People don't want, younger people don't identify with things like that as a great way to connect. Can we do a YouTube video? Can somebody do a TikTok? How do we engage in the manner in which the younger crowd is communicating so that we can actually get to them? So that it's kind of fits in both buckets. Like, how do you attract them? We have to talk like them. You have to talk where they are talking and where they are having that conversation. So
I think if we under I don't want to jump ahead too far, but I seen Josh writing in attract young and diverse workers. I think that
John,
you
don't
know,
blame this on Josh. I'm the one that's writing and doing a poor job of it.
I'm sorry, Leah.
Really,
You're doing great.
Sorry, you're doing great. But I'm giving Josh the credit. Josh, I take that back. No, just showing them a paycheck and letting them see what the wages are. That's huge, you know. I think that you know, if they see wherever they worked at, they see that they got benefits attached and see the wage that they might be receiving when they enter that job or receive that job, I think that's a plus. You know, a lot of jobs get paid every 2 weeks, you know, with the unions, you know, we get paid every week, you know, so that's huge too, you know, with the pay.
And I think in that you have to wrap in too, John, to piggyback on that. Not only just saying you're going to make $900 a week, right? But what can you do with $900? Like, you have to give them visual representation of what that looks like. And right. I think that is, you know, you have a car note that you pay $500 a month, right? If it's $900 a week you can take this much off your car note, this much for rent. So you have to give them visual representations, because I don't know, my kids could care less about money. That's because that's either they're spoiled or privileged. I haven't figured out which one yet, but they both
spoiled them, Josh.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's called both.
It's probably both, Josh.
I know, right? They have no concept of money. They just don't get it. And it's frustrating as a parent. But anyways, they, you know, it's this generation too, though, is they don't think about money the same way we did. They don't look at money as I have to have it. I have to put it in a shoebox under my bed. They look at it as I'm going to spend money on what I want to do, on my experiences, on the things that I want. So it's, when we're talking about that, I think one of the good ways is to show them visually what that looks like, how that breaks down, and what they can actually do with that money. It becomes more important to them.
One of the things, you know, as we focus on young people, I'll share my experience. I started my apprenticeship at 19 years old. So I was in job trailers with guys that can legitimately be not only my father, but my grandfather. And it was all white men at that. So that was a huge culture shock. So not only do we prepare the people that we're looking for to get in these industries, we have to prepare the people that are training them, because in that situation, any one of those individuals that would be in charge of training me can say the wrong thing, do something culturally inappropriate or sexist, and that turns me off from the entire industry, because now I think that everyone in this industry is like this. So not only do we have to prepare the people entering these industries, we have to prepare those mentors really purposely to not drive the individuals that we're targeting to recruit away from this industry.
And to David's point, let's go back to, you know, whoever is doing the training, you know, if we're talking about diversity or if we're talking about a younger person, let's make sure that that person who is looking at their trainer can relate to them. So, you know, if you see it, you can be it. So if I'm a young female, am I being trained or mentored by, you know, to David's point, a 60-year-old white man who doesn't think women should be in the industry? Or if I'm a person of color and I'm a young kid coming out and I'm thinking I could probably make more money if I was on TikTok or if I was doing my own videos, like what is my purpose here? It also is people, young kids, and this is just from what I'm hearing from them, they want a purpose and they want that purpose to tie to money. So putting them on a job site, you know, and having that old adage of, you know, part of the job site is getting yelled at, they're going to walk off the job now. So that whole training the mentors is a big thing, and changing the culture on a job site is so important in getting, you know, attracting people and then keeping them.
I totally agree with everything that's been said. You know, David, I missed the last meeting, but you meeting before I left out of here, man, you had me on fire talking about some of the programs that have been taken out of the schools that you knew of, growing up, until this culture that we're talking about, what you were talking about, changing changes, which is a slow change, we have to do this on the front end, before a 19-year-old walks out on that site. And I say it all the time, and I know Leah has heard me say it from the time we met. It's so crucial how we coach and train these people up to prepare them just for that. When they walk out on that site for the first day and nobody looks like them, nobody talks like them. If they're not prepared to deal with some of those scenarios that are sure to come up, yeah, it's gonna be rough.
I definitely agree with that.
I agree as well. Good stuff. All right. I mean, we can move on to 3. I think some of these bleed over. 2 and 3 kind of runs into each other. And I like the number 1. I was going to bring up, it's funny, a Facebook reel. There's a woman, she goes by the name Drywall Shorty. That's her name, right? She's been doing drywall for like 20 years. And I suck at doing drywall, right? Of mudding. So I always get like sucked into watching her videos. But I can imagine someone seeing that, and it's 30 or 45 seconds of a clip that really engages and gets people involved. And it's something I know DWD was moving towards. So hopefully David can kind of continue to get that pushing. But that was a big thing that I was like, yo, we're missing out because we're talking about a program. 19-year-olds aren't on LinkedIn, right? That's great. 19-year-olds aren't even on Facebook, right? They're like, I don't want to be where my parents are. So we have to get to where the kids are, right? That's the Snapchats, that's the TikToks, that's the Instagram. And I just don't think the industry, I love what Andrea's posting because that's it, right? Industry hasn't figured out, once again, taking it back to the top or taking to the second part where I talked about changing workplace culture. They haven't figured out how to engage not even the younger folks, but even us folks at 40 who our minds have also grown. So how do you get engaged and do that? So I love the social media. I think that is one of the absolute key ways of attracting people now is you have to be somewhere. It's advertising, marketing, it's outreach, it's education. That all has to be done on a platform.
Josh, if I can jump in, because I worked at DWD, Workforce Development as well. And I remember going to a workforce board presentation in Green Bay where the students put together those little videos, the day in the life of working at the cheese plant. And then they showed it. They invited people to the local theater. They showed it in the classrooms. People were involved in it. It was part of it was their ownership of it as well. And we have so many industries partners here that I just think that there are great opportunities to do that and take it to the next level in this area as well. Good ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I always think about, my predecessor, Karen, she's like, we got to do really good videos, give a nice 3-4 minute video talking about the industry. And I'm like, 3 to 4 minutes? Nobody's watching that, right?
No, but something that gets them involved, right?
Yes, and it gauges.
The TikTok is really a neat idea.
Yeah, TikTok is ridiculous.
And you can see I'm struggling with trying to figure out how to spell it. My niece just busted me out the other day when she asked me to send her something via TikTok. When I texted back to her, she's like, "You mean this?" And I had to look it up. I still don't even think I got it right. But anyway, don't laugh at me too hard.
But Josh, to that point, like what I'm noticing is that those really short blurbs of information is what attracts those young people. Like that you have that 3 to 4 minute window to get them in, and after that they're done. They're scrolling to the next thing.
Right.
I think it's 30 seconds now. I think it used to be 3 minutes, but now it's that 30-second TikTok, that 30-second. Here we are, and I think it keeps evolving as technology keeps changing.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
Don't
really
feel
funny
bad.
that you said that because within WisDOT, we just finished doing a trans tribal video. If we have some time, I'll share it with you at the end. But if not, I'll send it out to you guys. And it's really funny. Some of us were pushing for the 2-minute video, which is probably too long, but we ended up posting on our website the 5-minute video.
Leah, don't feel
Like,
bad.
it's
I
everything.
messed up with my grandkids with the TikTok too.
But I think,
yeah, we have a lot to do as far as making sure that we reach that younger population, but we also need to work internally on we still have this mindset that the longer the better when it's not the case.
Yeah, agreed.
you
To
know,
Josh's point earlier with the TikTok video, I think you could use, like when you said, what can they do with the money they're going to make? That
yes,
would be a great thing to show on TikTok, because then people actually see it and like you, hey, I went on this vacation, or hey, this is my car and I have this job, and type of correlation with that, so they can see what they can accomplish with making that much money.
And you're seeing that on TikTok in other industries where they're
You are.
doing that. They're doing, this is what I
Oh,
do.
really? Is that what I haven't seen that? That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
like, wow, how did I afford all of this X, Y, and Z? And then there's a link to whatever the career opportunity is. They can follow it up.
Really? Oh, that I
Mhm.
didn't even know that was
Creative way we
happening.
could do that.
there's
Yeah.
some really cool
Sure
stuff.
about yachts or anything, but we could do some fun things that make it a rewarding opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was thinking, you know, as I look at like Tracy and John, like, and Andrea, you know, even in your industry, if you found some folks in there who were champions, like, not, and they don't have to be younger, because older people do, I mean, they do goofy dance on TikTok, but I'm using an example here of, like, you can engage somebody and get somebody to just put out those short videos of what does it look like to lay asphalt? Boom, 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 like a real quick video they do, right? Or what does it look like to be a laborer? And I mean, I think those are the things that we can start doing, that we should start doing when we talk about engaging and getting those young and diverse workers, but also attracting other individuals who are switching careers, because that's the other part of it. I watch TikTok. I mean, so if I was in a career and I wanted to do something different, I might see it and be like, I never thought about doing something like that. So I think it's, you know, just, and I don't want to, you know, belabor TikTok, but I think social media in general is where we need to get employers understanding it's much deeper than just a website, or it's much deeper than a video that's 3 minutes long that talks about the occupation. You can do a series. That's the thing. You can do 10, or you can do, you could do 6 30-second videos, and there's your 3 minutes, and no one would know. They're just thinking like, oh, it's another 30 seconds. Like, I know that's messed up how our brain thinks, but that is, that, you know, you go through videos, you scroll through, and they're 30 seconds long. You only realize you're watching a series of them.
Mm-hmm.
So good stuff.
Sometimes I think, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but sometimes we got to be careful with all the social media, because when they get on the jobs, these phones right here get on fire. Okay, so if you introducing this stuff and telling them it's okay to, you know, this how you can do with your money, they thinking they're gonna be walking around the job sites with this phone out. And when you got a contractor paying them $30 an hour, this is a no-no. The TikTok, the Instagram, the YouTube, all this is a no-no till after 3:30.
So we'll bring brother Renard in to school everybody during those trans classes. That is not acceptable.
Unacceptable. And, you know, it's a safety. It's a safety.
If I see a cell phone, and you are so right, my friend, you're fired. People get fired because of cell phones. You're so right.
It's acceptable, just not while they're working, right? There's plenty of other times to be able to utilize it.
Yep.
Well, I think I think using the TikToks and the Instagram to direct them to where they can get involved in these careers.
Yeah.
I think, you know, to include that information and say, hey, you can make this much money really quick. This is what a job site looks like really quick. This is the car I just bought.
Yeah.
Call, your local workforce board, call this local union, and you can get involved. Like really quick snapshots. Not necessarily saying, having a guy carrying his phone through a job site, but just that quick blurb to direct them to how they can be like that person that they're watching on their phone.
You starting to sound like our parents now, John.
Hey, I just seen a lot of guys get fired, and I got to represent them.
No, no doubt.
But that's a great hook, though. That's a great hook
point
to get them in. I think I understand what you were just saying. I think that was you again, Dave. That's a great hook to get them in. Once we get them in, we clean them up so they can get prepared.
Right.
And just so you know, as I'm typing, I will make sure this is cleaned up. I'm just typing as I hear you all talk. But I'll make sure it's cleaned up so it is readable and makes sense.
It looks great, Leah.
I like the way DOT on construction zones, they have those little clever sayings you see every once in a while when you're driving. And I don't know what we could do, but I feel like every time I go into a business now, there's a sign, we're hiring, we're hiring. Doesn't matter where it is, there's always a sign up. Well, out in the field, I feel like we could use a clever saying or something to integrate it into the we're hiring aspect in a unique way. The problem is it's a very, it's one sentence, right? But it's still something that gets people's attention when they're walking down, or not walking, when they're driving down the highway through a construction area to take note that that's a career opportunity. Just wanted to throw that out there too.
Good call. That is innovative right there. Good stuff, Mike.
Or you can establish some kind of link too, to the DOT or certain contractors or certain, if this going to be a group effort deal, something that they can research if it's a link attached to it.
If we could come up with a clever hook in that sentence before the link, right? So.
Right. And it has all the information and where to apply it and who to talk to, names and numbers attached to that link.
Right.
Yeah, even with a QR code, right, where they can use their phone and it will take you directly to all the information as well.
Good stuff. All right, well, I'll move on to number 4. It sounds like, that number 1, that is really big. We're talking how to attract young and diverse workers. We really have to get out there in the social media land. There's other ways, but in number 2, it kind of talked about that as well, workplace culture. So number 4, this is one of the areas that I think is really key, especially coming from trans becoming a certified pre-apprenticeship program. Maximize opportunities to introduce trans graduates to contractors through networking events. And I'm going to kick this one off and say we have to find a way, and we as a committee, we need to find a way to get in contractors not only engaged in networking type events, but to get engaged with the trans cohorts that are going through. And what I mean by engaged is that they are there, they are visible to those trans students, even if it's one of the great things that we have now is Zoom, right? They can schedule a 15-minute Zoom call with the cohort and just talk and ask questions. I think we have to figure out a way to get employers in front of them. I will tell you that from my experience, over the past 8 years when I was in DWD and going to the Golden Shovel Awards, and there was always like a trans event, right? There was always something where trans graduates came and they talked to employers. I would love to see what the success is out of that, of those individuals that came. But I'd be hard pressed to believe that those employers actually took it serious enough to bring those individuals in. Now, maybe some did, but I think we have to intentionally get trans cohorts in front of employers outside of just the Golden Shovel Awards. We need to have stuff going on, whether it's quarterly, whether it's, twice a year. There needs to be something going on where they're getting in front of them and also getting engaged with those trans cohorts. Just my opinion. That's my 2 cents.
So Josh, I think you kind of get to the core of that class, right? I think having the networking thing at the Golden Shovels, that's important. It's a great part of it for me as an employer, I've already decided who I'm hiring because, throughout the state, we're in the classrooms. And we're in the classrooms, from the interviewing of candidates getting in class, from doing like physical hands-on, doing some essential skills. Each area we do it a little bit differently. And the purpose of that, right, is exactly as you said, because that engagement and the people connecting with the students, our superintendents can identify who they want to hire and what they think and give advice. And by the time that class is ended, we pretty much decided, like, I want this person, this person, this person. I mean, it really is a feeder and direct connection. And I think that there's a handful of contractors that do it and utilize that model in the way that they should. But the second piece that they could do out of it, if they're not going to commit to that level, I don't think so much okay, I'm coming in and I'm doing now this mandatory, or, I'm going to interview somebody. There has to be that intent to hire, right?
Right.
So, that has to be, and I don't know if the model, I know when I helped put together the model for the trans class up in the northern area and then in the Milwaukee area, we had that that was a model years and years ago that, there were hours set aside in the class for contractors, and then that there was, this really intent to hire from the contractors, but that should be, contractors should have an expectation to do something outside of that global, or I keep saying Golden Globes, and it's really the golden shovel. Don't judge my brain. Outside of that there should be something mandatory or like strongly encouraged that they're doing, because the after effect, you're not benefiting anybody. So for sure, engaging in the class from beginning to end. One of the things that has been, I know we talk about Zoom and we talk about a lot of like doing stuff, and stuff can mean different things for different contractors. One of the things, besides the just going in the class and interviewing, we're bringing the class out to our company. And so we're doing like round robin, our company calls it round robin kind of stuff. And that has been really, really successful. So, instead of like talking at a group of kids, and not even kids, these are adults. Nobody wants to just sit and listen all day long telling you the good and bad of construction. Here, put them out on a shop floor, or have them come in and really see the scope of what the company does and get them excited. So I think, two things, right? Being involved in the class, be involved as the class is going. And then let's challenge the contractors to not just doing a, hey, question and answer thing, but how can you get them to engage in the work that you're doing as an employer? What can you give them hands-on to do with those cohorted classes? And I think that's where the excitement comes in. And also sometimes people decide like, this isn't for me. And it's also important to identify what you don't like, unless what you like. And sometimes they find, like, we brought people out here and they're like, oh, this asphalt stuff, this isn't cool. Like, we really don't. So we know that this isn't a good fit.
Good point.
I'm just sitting here kind of smiling, doing this, the experience I've gotten in the decade of doing this, I never, ever, and will never go past the importance of building relationships with these contractors that are built on mutual trust, mutual respect, and mutual self-interest. What's in it for me, what's in it for you, and really try to create that win-win communication. And by nurturing these relationships over years, I'm proud to say, we graduated 8 students, only one Caucasian male, one Caucasian female in January. And all 8 of them are working right now. Before the season, they're all employed, none of them make less than $22 an hour. Most of them have benefits. I've got a class that's graduating tomorrow with 7 students. I hate to inform you, one of those trainees died in his sleep Tuesday night of an accident. So my class decided, I'll let them decide. They're going to go on tomorrow. But anyway, out of the 6 remaining, 4 of them are already working. You know,
Are they getting into apprenticeship, or are they just doing different roles throughout different companies?
Both. Is that you, Tracy? Okay. We got our only Milwaukee virtual graduate into Payne and Dolan, who is working QC. You know, we have a young lady. I've got folks set up for apprenticeships as far as laborers at Northeast Asphalt. You know how that trajectory goes. It's more like a pre-apprenticeship, you know, until they prove themselves, you know, in a certain period of time, you know, and to earn that apprenticeship. You know, Leah was talking about that video, you know, if you guys get a chance to see it, it's about 7 or 8 trans grads that were featured in that video. Outside of one of them, they all come from the Northeast program. You know, it's for me, it's simply about building those relationships, you know, and building that trust. And when they know that they have a product, man, they're jumping out trying to get our guys and gals early, because they know as the season progresses, you know, there'll be competition. The Northeast Asphalts, the MCCs, the Hoffmans, they try to catch these folks as soon as before they come out of class. Okay, I'm done.
So then there's something there, you know, what you're talking about, Bernard, and there's something there that I think that we should hone in on, which is if employers are chomping at the bit for the graduates, how do we start to make sure more individuals are getting engaged with those programs? Right. So this kind of ties back into a couple of the other ones. So I'm just talking it through. Like, we should be looking at how to engage and how to increase enrollment in those trans programs if employers are already on that side of it, waiting for the individuals that come through.
Josh,
I don't think that there's enough good publicity. Going back to what Renard said, you know, the showing videos of the success stories of the graduates is really important. But I think marketing the program also, I don't think it's, and I've been working, you know, with the trans program for 20 years now, right? I don't think it's marketed in the way that it could be, to the extent it should be. So I think it has to be, unfortunately, sold. I'm going to use sold, you know, to contractors to be involved, right? But when you have contractors like myself and other contractors who are hiring to talk about that success, to showcase it, and to showcase those workers who are now, who use that pathway to become successful and have a sustaining career, those stories need to be told. And you know, whatever forum that's used, TikTok, Snapchat, you know, dancing, you know, on a commercial, like whatever that looks like, it has to be shared. And really what happens, and for those of you on the phone that are employers, you know this, we're competitive. We see something working, you know, for another contractor, we're going to want to get in on it. I mean, the good thing is our company is in on it, and we are actually help develop it. But for contractors who are out there and maybe like, oh, I went and did something, but I didn't really know how it, we have to show them how it works. And Josh, you hit it. The smaller classes, aren't, as the need increases for workers, the smaller classes aren't going to cut it for me as an employer. And it's not going to cut it for a northern area either. It's we have to increase it. And that could be twofold. It could be focusing on a youth cohort and an adult class, or having, however that is, and then advertising it, marketing it. So that's just my take on it.
And just so you know, the laborers don't have a pre-apprenticeship right now. We're currently working on that, but so just so everyone knows, the laborers is working on that that deal right there. Well, even if they sending them out as laborers or pre-apprentice laborers, we don't have that attachment yet.
I have a question for Tracy, kind of geared towards promoting that and getting other employers to want to use trans grads and that to connect them. Do you have like a retainment that you could show that would entice others to use trans?
You know, that's a great question. We've been trying to work on tracking on the retain, you know, what we've done with trans grads throughout, and we use them throughout Wisconsin, right, in the northern area, the Madison area, and Milwaukee. We could probably put together a report of those we've hired. You know, it would have to be within a time frame, and then those that are still with us. But even if they still wouldn't be with us, it doesn't mean they're not in the industry either. But I'm sure we could put something together that could tell a story. You know, and I'm talking company-wide, not just for Northeast Asphalt, not just for Payne and Dolan, but it really, that's a good point to say, here's how it's working for us.
You know, Michael, how well do we do with ASP1 as it relates to reminding contractors of our reimbursement for hiring a trans grad? And just so you know, Tracy, I just got approval. We got approval to make a change to that, to build some increase the incentive and add an incentive to move a trans graduate into an apprenticeship. So separating, making sure that that's clearly defined and having some different milestone payments for that. Just got that approved yesterday.
Okay.
And that's going to be based on a pilot that we're doing with the Southeast region on geographic preference for hiring the city of Milwaukee residents that meet their residency requirement preference program.
For the RPP, like for
yeah. I always
Yep,
forget how that acronym works.
Okay.
Anyway, and what we're doing is we're going to be working with the city of Milwaukee, so they would be identifying folks, and then we would be getting them in our trans program. So kind of tapping into that untapped population or underrepresented population. So again, Mike, I guess this question is for Michael Scaldi. How are we doing with making sure that contractors are aware of ASP1? Are they using it? Do we need to make sure we're reminding them of this option? Because that's an incentive.
That's a
that
good
we wanna make
reminder,
sure-
Leah.
Yeah, that we want to make sure that they are, that they are taking advantage of that those reimbursement dollars.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's something that I've talked with my team about because we bring things up in the pre-con. There's a little bit of information there, but our discussion offline has been of, well, with the dollars changing and with the potential expansion, can we include a brochure? Can we get out and do more marketing with the program and with the contractors? We're doing a really good
I
job
guess my
of
question to you
process.
is that we should have some data already. You should be able to talk to your staff and say, okay, are you guys tracking this? How many contractors are you tracking this for? I mean, they should be able to tell you,
Sure.
if contractors are taking advantage of it, because I'm curious to know.
And could you share, like, I wonder, and I don't know what you can and can't share, but I wonder,
We can share.
like, money speaks like volume. So if you put like an amount, like contractors were reimbursed this amount in the past 3 years or 1 year, like have that amount, that
we should
might be a
That's,
shock
I would assume
effect.
as long as we're not identifying any specific contractor, we're
Right.
talking about it generally, it's a public record document that we can share. Yeah, so Michael's team is responsible for monitoring ASP1, so his folks could pull that data together for us.
Sure.
But you made me just kind of think about this because we have this incentive program in place, but I don't even know how well it's being used, and if contractors even know about it, remember it. People change in organizations over time, so.
Absolutely. And it's like telephone tag. The person who was there really knew how it worked and they're utilizing it great. Couple of people change or sort of using it. Now somebody else came in and maybe you're not doing reimbursement at all, or it looks complicated and you don't really know how to do it. So it might
Right.
be some education around it or just that reminder.
Yeah, because I know when we're doing contractor training, do we even do any training related to ASP1? I'm not even sure if we've even incorporated that into any of the contractor training that we do through Michael's group. So this is really good stuff. And it made me think about back to, I'm sorry, Josh, for doing this to you, back to number 1 regarding find and recruit good talent. I will add something in there that we're doing this pilot project. And we will be able to talk about which project that we've selected, which will be a big project in Milwaukee. And it's voluntary. So, you know, Tracy, when you mentioned about mandatory, at WisDOT, we've decided to not make it mandatory, but how can we highly encourage contractors to look at, you know, using this incentive approach to diversify their workforce by concentrating on a certain geographical area. And we've put together a plan related to that, and we're going to be rolling that out very soon.
Oh, I'm excited to hear about that or see what that will look like.
Yeah, it's really interesting because initially we had to submit what's called a SEP 14 plan to the USDOT based on their hiring preference posting that they put in a Federal Register February of 2021. But because of the bipartisan infrastructure law, they found a way to give states an opportunity to bypass that process. But our process has to look like the state of Michigan's. And the good news is that when I was working on the plan, I duplicated some aspects of Michigan's plan, but not other aspects of it. Like they have in Michigan, they have this incentive, but it's built into their bidding process. And we can't do that because we're a low bid state. So that's where I came up with the training reimbursement for trans graduates. That's how we would deal with it and make it voluntary. So as soon as we finalize that and pull it out together, I'll share that. I'll actually share the plan with this group, and then I'll add it to number 1 as a strategy that we're also looking at that we can monitor over the next this one in particular won't be able to occur next year, but we can at least put it on our radar. So I'm sorry I digressed into.
Oh, that's exciting. That's good stuff though.
And I was too busy taking notes that I forgot to mention that as a strategy that I'll go back and add.
I did want to mention also though, as far as like the ASP1, you know, I have, you know, 3 or 4 contractors at most that definitely once a trans graduate is hired, makes it sure that I send them, you know, they request from me that trans grad certification, that they actually, you know, graduated the training, you know, so they can actually be put in the CRCS system. You know, it's just, the thing in my experiences the last 10 years, again, it's just very few contractors that, for whatever their reason, I don't know if it's structural, I don't know what it is, but you see very few. You know, I can name off the top of the head that are going to make sure once one of the graduates accepts an offer, Renard, I need that grad cert. I had to send out about 5 of them yesterday. You know, I think those are the employers that I work with that are really, really serious about, you know, helping minorities gain access to this industry.
Yeah, on the west side, I think we need to take a look at, if we don't have a lot of participation, we need to gather some information on why we have a lack of participation in this reimbursement opportunity. Is it because, you know, of documentation, you know, how can we make sure that that's not a barrier? So I think there are some things that we can look at internally. So Michael's group will, I'm going to ask Michael to check in with his staff to see how much this is being utilized, so we have that data, and then we can go from there. Sorry, Josh.
I did want to point out, we do in our trainings, we do go over ASP1, we talk about it, but I think there's an opportunity to strengthen it even more.
Sounds good, Michael. That's good to hear. And thanks. I'm glad we're talking about it. Sorry, Josh.
No, you're fine. No worries at all. Good conversation. All right. Is everybody, I know, what time do they kick us back over? In like
It looks like we still have about, I think, 8 minutes or 10 minutes, 12 minutes. We have 12 minutes.
Yeah, so if you scroll back up then, Leah, where we are, let's see.
Looks like we were at, oh, sorry, I went way too far down. My goodness, you're right.
You got excited. You just
I
were
did.
like,
I
hey,
just pulled us to the end of the.
So right there then, so I have 4. I think I'm satisfied if everybody else is satisfied with what we have there as we look, and there will be more things that come about of it as well. And one thing that I will say,
Josh, can I also say that once I make the edits to this and we get that out to everyone, if you think of other strategies for, okay, I'll let you go ahead. I won't steal your thunder. Go ahead.
no, it's fine, Leah. It's I was gonna say the same thing, which is this is a fluid document. So if you could think of other stuff that we missed, as you're thinking about throughout your daily traverses, please feel free to throw it on there and update us with it when we come back, because we won't get through this whole document today, so we'll revisit it at the next meeting.
All right, I'll move down. I'll move on to the next one here.
All right. So educate employers on how to attract and retain diverse workers in a tight labor market.
So it's Jocasta. I wanted to, I didn't know if this was more appropriate for number 1, but I was looking at number 5 too, waiting for us to get here. Have you guys ever done bilingual outreach? Do employers do bilingual outreach? And I'll say this too, because I know you might be thinking, well, we can't have a bunch of Spanish speakers because then, and not everybody speaks Spanish. But the truth is that I was thinking, last night I was at a speaking engagement and I had to speak Spanish to the audience because they were predominantly Spanish speaking. But I know half of them were bilingual, meaning they spoke English and Spanish. These were young adults. These could be potential recruits. And I just feel like we're also missing that opportunity to potentially hit those young adults who are bilingual English, Spanish, as well as their parents who they might be Spanish dominant, but they got a kid at home who's 17 and doesn't want to go to traditional 4-year college. And the parent will take that information and want to introduce their child to that. So I just felt like I have never heard us talk about that. I don't know if it happens. I don't know if I just want people to have a sense of this really could lead to some good recruitment for us. So I wanted to throw that out there.
I think that's, that really is key when we've started to think about just on a very broad scale, is thinking about how much of the community are we truly missing with these opportunities. And when I say community, I not only just mean the workers, but how many businesses are we missing as well? Like when we talk about apprenticeships, you have the barbering and cosmetology program. And you look, and the South Side is just as rich as the North Side when it comes to barbering, to barbershops and beauty salons. But we're missing out on so many. And now David did a lot of this work at MATC, is really targeting how to get folks engaged. But when you start to go higher than that, there's never been a concerted effort outside of being in compliance with documentation, or having a website that can, read for the blind, or it can translate for you. And I think that's definitely an area that could be a huge focus in here, Alderwoman. So it's a very good point to bring up.
There's also windmills training for employers and hiring people with disabilities. That's a really good resource for employers.
And David, go ahead, David.
One of the things that was really different, and Josh, I had explained some of this work to you in your previous role, is that at the technical college, when they look at bilingual programming, it's actually preparing Spanish speakers to work in industries and learning the verbiage of that industry to work in that industry with Spanish with English speakers, right? Now, Josh, what you were alluding to that we were doing with the Bar Cos program, and I hope they're continuing this project as I'm not there anymore. That bilingual program was actually outreach to Spanish speaking employers for Spanish speaking apprentices to encapsulate the entire program for Spanish speakers and deliver the curriculum in Spanish, because their certification, that testing is also delivered in English and Spanish. So there was a bit of a, you can see the dichotomy between the projects, right? I think that one way that we can address that hurdle, and I'm speaking specifically for Spanish speaking individuals, is build more CPAs that build out that same framework for Spanish speakers to learn those industry learn that industry verbiage and the basic skills that they need to know to get into that industry so that they can participate with English speakers, because we know once you're in and on the job, you'll continue to learn that industry. But what is the entry level verbiage and things that you need to know to communicate effectively on that specific job site with whatever field that those individuals may pursue? And that's the aim that was taken at MATC with other programming until we can fully encapsulate a shift where those individuals are going to Spanish speaking companies. And then you kind of shift that training to educate both in that arena. Does that make sense to everyone?
So, yep. So David, so build more CPAs to do what now?
Build more CPAs that prepare Spanish speaking individuals with the verbiage and what word am I looking for? With the verbiage and dialogue to communicate with English speakers on specific job sites. What are the things that they need to know on a basic level that they can get work done effectively?
I'll edit this a little bit more, but I got the essence of what you're sharing here. Then I'm also wondering, David, too, is there like how, when we're talking about educating employers, is there a way for the employers to connect with the technical college system?
Absolutely. And to be honest, we need more CPAs built out that address that. And we have funding to support CPAs that will do that and get those individuals connected into registered apprenticeships. But we need more CPAs that specifically address that pain point for Spanish speakers getting into registered apprenticeship.
And
I'm sorry, CPA is certified pre-apprenticeship. My apologies.
And one of the good things in there too is, as David is talking, many of you have heard me talk about this or seen me when I wrote about it, is, where there's a struggle with English as a second language, but it's offered at the technical college for like $3.50 a semester. And, some of the things that we could think about is we're thinking about, as David is bringing up the bilingual as well as Alderwoman, how do we support that within the registered apprenticeship program instead of always building out, like how David's saying, learning those basic terms? Other people said, well, no, let's just have a whole Spanish speaking cohort. Well, that doesn't work, because then everybody's going to go to different job sites or different employers, and they're not going to be with their cohort. So thinking about English as a second language, what can employers do to engage in that in their apprenticeships, or make that as an option for their workers? How can they do that, right? It's $3.50 a semester, so they can engage in that, give the person time to take off of work to take it, or it's online or whatever. So without thinking about it, more globally, that's kind of an idea there too. I think about it, and you know, it's more important as we continue to see immigration. Continue to see people immigrate to Wisconsin, not just in the Milwaukee area, but all across the state. Getting that English as a second language would be key. And you'd be able to inject them into the workforce right away. As we learned, me and David learned when we went to Germany, that's what they did there.
Yep, they did that in Germany right away as those people immigrated in from different countries. The other thing, and you're right, Josh, including that English as a second language, but maybe there's a bunch of grant funding coming out that is actually already out, that where the applications are going to come due probably in about 2 or 3 weeks. The other thing that could be done is, and this may be a workforce development board thing, is to apply for funding to compensate those employers that would pursue what Josh just laid out. So there may be workforce development boards that would pay an employer, or at least a portion of the time, that they would send a Spanish speaker to ESL classes for that individual to better learn English and then progress them up into their workforce. And speaking from my chair, definitely into registered apprenticeship. I think that's a population, you know, as we talk about pain points of just finding people, anyone that would be interested in coming into this workforce, I think that is a population that we're sorely missing out on.
Well, and it's a very growing demographic population. We've seen the significant change in our census data recently. So it's a population that we need to pay attention to.
Agreed.
Oh, this is all really good. Thank you.
All right, and I think with our remaining time, if we wanted to jump over here to number 6, this is one here that I kind of built out a little bit more based off of what you all left at the last meeting. But educate career planners and the workforce development system staff on the industry and workforce needs. In my experience in DWD, and Leah's experience in DWD, in David's future experience in DWD, one of the challenges that are faced is understanding industry. They understand workforce in general, right? But not a specific industry. And that becomes a barrier in and of itself. And, you know, I always think about my wife, who used to work for job service. She was funded under apprenticeship. And what she had to learn was like, okay, what does apprenticeship mean? What are the sectors? And to be able to explain that down. That's because she was funded by apprenticeship. The rest of the 800 staff that are working for job service, that's a hypothetical number, but they're not understanding what those industries look like. Like, they're not understanding what the occupations look like. So for me, we have to, and Leah, you're typing out perfectly, is we have to be able to, industry has to drive that. That's really what I was getting to, is industry has to drive that conversation. Industry can't wait for DWD to do it. Industry has to request it and demand it and say, we want you to know what our industry is so that you can help pointing people to our industry. And it has to be intentionally done. We did that in apprenticeship intentionally to get that information down, but that's just we're one program. It was one opportunity there, but there's a vast array of ability for those statewide staff to learn about the industry. And we talk about industry, we're talking about role building. I mean, that's just let's key in on it. It's role building. Getting them to understand what role builders do and getting them to understand how to direct people to that. And you would be one of the first industries, I will tell you, that has done that. Not many industries have come into DWD and said, we want to tell your staff what we do to get people. It becomes more of they're waiting for DWD to send people to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Christina, how are we doing with time? Are we ready to go back? Or are you still with us? Christina? Well, that concerns me. What happened to Christina?
She's probably going to switch us back in a minute.
Okay. Is she still on? Let me, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this because I don't think we're going to be able to complete, but I did save and I'll make edits and get this out to everyone. Let's see if Christina is still with us. I don't see her. She left us. That's interesting. We
scared her away. Is that what you're saying?
I hope I didn't. Let me try to reach out to her and see what's going on here.
But you know, as you're doing that, Lee, I think it's one of the things that industry can now take a step up and say, let's make this happen. You know, or how do we do this, right? You know, Alderwoman, you brought up, me and you have met before and you've talked about it. Like, what can we do from this side of it to say, okay, how do we make this happen? It's the same thing. Industry now has to step up. The Tracys, the Johns, you know, the Andreas, you have to step up and say, hey, we're coming in and we want you to know what we do in this industry, and we want you to direct people towards us.
Well, and I think if we do a small group and do some action around it, when one employer and one union does something, then it's a domino effect for everyone else. That's just how the industry works. So
Yeah,
if we can get something moving, some action.
Yep, I agree, Tracy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, looks like we are going back into our room. So I just saw a note from Christina. And Josh, we'll let you go ahead and take the lead to give a summary of our discussion.
Good.
This is really great. Boy, did we make a lot of progress. This is really good. Thank you. You're a great group to work with. I really appreciate everyone.
I do as well. Thank you. And you all came up with some great stuff.
Yes, this is
Last
based on all the discussions that we've had over the last year, is how we were able to pull this together in this work plan document.
That's right. We appreciate you too, Leah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, this has been a team effort. Thank you all.
Like
I'll
that.
send everyone the tribal video, but please know that it is a little under 5 minutes. It's not the TikTok version, but it is. I am really proud. You know, I'm an older person and I'm proud and I like the long video.
We'll watch 45 seconds
I
of
get
it for
all
you.
the details.
Only you can call yourself old, Leah. We can't say that anymore.
I know, right?
I will embrace it. It has its benefits sometimes.
Definitely not a shameless plug for trans, but that video does tell a story.
Yeah, I agree. It is. It's really good. Yeah, we're gonna get it out now that we've piqued everyone's curiosity. And Renard did a nice job in the video. And thank you, Wallback Group, for helping us with that. Great participation. I think, let's see, I am interesting. Well, maybe we'll end up hanging out with each other a little longer here. I think Christina must be having some connectivity issues.
It's like that uncomfortable silence. Like, what's
Yeah,
going
and I kind of left. So
No, I'm working. I'm just like, everybody's quiet. I can get these emails out of the way. There's no.
What's really weird is I left the room, so I don't know what's going on, and then I just rejoined you guys. So I don't know if you noticed I disappeared.
Well,
I'll pretend I did.
We're also removed from the chat, so I don't know if she's having trouble toggling.
Yeah, she must be having some trouble here. Huh. hey, maybe what we can do is just go around and have everybody kind of give updates on what's happening in your areas, you know, the work that you do.
Hey, well, I'll throw a quick shameless plug in here for JFF. We're having a summit, a virtual summit, May 4th and 5th. It just started. Registration started today. It's for employers, so drive your employer networks to come in, talk about DEIA, and to learn more. There's an exclusive employer hour-long event that we're doing at the end of day one. So please get that information out. With shameless plug here for the work we're doing. My team put together.
Do you want to send something to me that I can share with this group?
Yes, please. I will.
Okay. Yeah, if you forward it to me, I'll make sure we get it out to everybody.
Definitely will.
Anybody else want to share while we're figuring out what's going on here?
Yeah, the laborers are doing good. You know, if anybody's on our bench after May, I don't know what to tell you, but everybody's doing good.
John, that's not good though, because I hear that you're going to give all the workers that I need over to some solar job. That's not good for us.
Well, you know, I got the couture going up, and also the trade where the hotels by Pfizer Forum going up. So UWM doing some demo over there. So we got a lot of work. We're reaching out to the communities, and everybody's happy that they're gonna be going back to work. So, and then we got this museum that's gonna be coming up in another year. So I'm happy to say Wisconsin Center. I'm happy to say that we're gonna have plenty of work for everyone.
The American Concrete Institute Wisconsin chapter is going to do a tour of the Couture building. So if you want to hang out with a bunch of people that like to talk about concrete, and we're going to have a dinner afterwards. So
Okay.
I'll share it with the group.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Awesome.
I was sitting there laughing. You know, if the guys are still on the bench after May, the problem might be theirs.
It's the reason they sitting on that bench if they still on the bench after May.
Oh yeah. They sit on that bench, they're gonna have to come see me, and we're gonna definitely have some talk.
Right. That'll be a need for a conversation.
I was gonna say the same thing, Renard. I was gonna say the same thing.
You know.
I already know.
Hey, you start seeing new people come in, you still sitting on the bench.
Right.
That's a great indicator.
Right. Right. You gotta remember they paying dues. I gotta take care of them some kind of way.
Get some donuts and coffee in there and have them come in and just talk, have a conversation. Oh man.
I don't have time.
I don't know. I think there was some kind of we're like the outliers. We didn't get brought over to the other group. I tried to join from my phone so I could take my daughter to the dentist, and it won't even let me join from the phone. So there must be something really going on.
Real quick, Josh, can I throw one real quick thing into the alderwoman?
Yes, sir.
The one issue I had is on the other side, not on the apprenticeship side, but just getting students in the trans. I really wanted to work with some of the elders in the Hispanic and Asian, Southeast Asian community and getting stuff translated into the language that they could pass it down to some of their bilingual or
right.
And the hard part, the issue I ran into, and I don't know why, they were talking about the cost of the translations. You know, something I never, but that was something that was brought back to me by our corporate communications, the cost of the actual getting the stuff translated. You know, but I really, that was an area I really thought that, you know, we could further reach, you know, by going to the elders, you know, and with the information might trickle down to the young people.
No, I think that's I agree. I think that talking to the parents or the elders can be really helpful. Oh, are they gonna take us into the other group now? I hear something.